Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Sono Topolino. E tu chi saresti?
I'm guessing you either have a wrong film or then you just pirated this from some Italian side.
This is actually when James Bond says, I'm Mickey Mouse, and who would you be? Welcome to the Flick Lab once again. So, we're looking at our last James Bond film for now, Spectre. This movie's name is Spectre. Yes.
Yep, we are wrapping up the Bond marathon just before we head to the theaters to check out the latest one. Now, ain't we, Karri?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we going to hit No Time to Die pretty soon here, Karri? Isn't that the whole point of the timetable, Karri?
That is kind of relative at this moment. It could take like 8 months for us to get our asses in the seats. Or more.
Yep.
Who knows?
or more, the film has been postponed for 5 years.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate that we have to talk about it, but it's on everyone's lips at the moment. Coronavirus has tried to ruin this podcast. Unfortunately, something has happened to our dear Tom, or more specifically to Tom's grandfather. Tom, as most of our Bond listeners may know, is our regular Bond expert visitor in these Bond episodes, but unfortunately something bad happened there. We believe that everything will be fine though, but sadly Tom is not able to make it for this episode. We wish all the best for Tom's grandfather.
Yeah, our heartfelt wishes to Tom and his loved ones at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. This had indeed nothing to do with the coronavirus, but I heard that Henrik has been taking some steps as well to fight the coronavirus in Finland.
Well, fight. At my university, I do at the moment manage this small crisis response operation when it comes to the university and the small student organizations within to help the organizations and the uni to get through this episode with as little hassle and as little taking as few hits as possible.
Yeah, you hear this warm-hearted film podcaster here. You can support our work further by supporting us on Patreon. Wink, wink.
by buying stuff from Loot Crate or Loot Box or what was it?
Yeah, at this time of recording, we still haven't opened our Patreon, but it's on the way. Hey, I mean, I don't mind if somebody wants to support this. They will be free to do so in the near future. But
yep, in a podcast that last night was apparently supported by the wine industry.
I think it's never gonna come to that. I think we made the solemn promise, at least for that we're not gonna talk about air mattresses and wines in this podcast or what have you.
I don't know. I must actually confess. I was in one yearly academic party last night, and I actually end up drinking as much as Bond drinks in his average adventure, which translates into a fuck ton a lot, basically.
Wow.
Like I may have hit some wine bottles pretty hard last night. I'm still kind of recovering from all that. In Finland, what kills you, it's not corona, it's the rampant alcoholism, especially in the podcast circles.
God, it's now like 83, 84 episodes in, and then my co-host never learns. Like, we record every Sunday. And
every Sunday. I did learn enough during our run on making the podcast. Enough to leave the nightclub before it was 4 a.m.
Oh, good times. I have apparently the best possible holiday ideas. You know, I was planning to go to Japan in about 3 or 4 weeks. Well, that's obviously not going to happen because we don't know what's going to happen in the near future if the travel restrictions are still going to be there. And as a plan B, I had another plan. I was thinking of going to southern Italy, not too far from northern Italy, mind you, or Italy, in fact. But yeah, the biggest part of Italy that we will get tonight or for the near future will be Spectre. Well, there is this infamous statement that we could kind of start off with. Excuse me, I have to clear up my throat for this jam. Now, I'd rather slash my wrists. I'm over it at the moment. We're done. All I want to do is move on. And then Craig added a slight caveat saying this would be his view for at least a year or two. He added, I don't know what the next step is. I have no idea. Not because I'm trying to be cagey. Who the fuck knows? At the moment, we've done it. I'm not in discussion with anybody about anything. If I did another Bond movie, it would only be for the money, said by Daniel Craig after filming Spectre. Right away after filming Spectre, and I can understand his feelings that some interviewer is going to harass him right after finishing the last shots, basically. The guy is exhausted.
Then Craig has said the same thing basically after every single Bond film he did. If I remember correctly, the statements that I'm tired of the franchise, I'm tired of Bond, I'm tired of everything started ever since Casino Royale wrapped up.
Yeah, I guess that's the kind of English spirit that you get every now and then. The guy's quite honest from what I've seen and what Sam Mendes has commented on the character of Daniel Craig, that he never lies. That's really...
Yeah, when he says that he's gonna quit, he is gonna quit and not come back film after film simply because Sony throws more millions at his face.
Yeah, there's that. But Daniel Craig was, as a reply to this infamous comments that he made earlier, he was paraphrasing Sam Mendes in one TV morning show to kind of further explain what he meant by the earlier comments. Okay, here goes. Quote, if you're 200 yards away from running a marathon and someone comes running up to you and says, are you going to run another marathon? There's 2 words you use, and not on a morning show. It takes its toll. But now indeed, No Time to Die is coming at some point. But before we look at it, let's look at this latest that is actually out. Skyfall writer John Logan is back, as well as the regular Bond writer duo Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. Also, Chase Butterworth became as a script polisher for the project, who gave some uncredited contributions to Skyfall. And this is important later. Butterworth considered that his changes involved adding what he would like to see as a teenager, and limited the scenes with Bond talking to men, as, quote, Bond shoots other men, he doesn't sit around chatting to them, so you put a line through that. I'm going to have a problem with this teenager comment later on because it's quite evident in some of the scenes.
Also, something you kind of have to remember when visiting Spectre is that, well, everybody has a problem with the comments relating to the film. The movie itself is kind of infamous for the fact that it came out a little time after the Sony email hacks were leaked to WikiLeaks. And from those emails, something that came pretty evident was that Sony producers were extremely worried and troubled by the film's script, and more specifically, especially the third act of the movie, and some heavy rewrites and reworkings were put in order before the film was released to the theaters. So the movie we are visiting today is kind of the product that was salvaged and saved during the process and the script changes. So this is more definitely, this is the Sony producer approved version of whatever the mess was before.
I understand they were still making quite a lot of changes when the shooting was going on, which explains a lot of the issues on the film. I'm not sure if the actual early draft of the script is widely available. I suppose it is. I haven't read it. I haven't seen it.
I also didn't find it when I quickly tried to look it up. So okay. I also don't know what is the original script and what were the troubling elements in it that Sony got so scared of or felt that they most definitely did not work. But this is supposed, like the film you have on the DVD or on Blu-ray disc is supposed to be the film that actually does work. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, nevertheless, this is one of the most expensive films ever made, with costs running up to 245 to 275 million USD, according to some estimates, even as high as 300 million. Somewhere there. Who's counting? And kind of the base of this film was to be some kind of a celebration of Bond. Again, I'm not sure why.
I'm not sure if this was supposed to be a celebration of Bond. Because Skyfall was supposed to be the big Bond celebration film. And this was just like there is nothing to celebrate when Spectre came out.
Right?
So
like the first film came out in 1962 with Dr. No in the series. And in 2012 Skyfall came out. So that's like 50 years of James Bond. But
yeah, and Skyfall already made a big deal about how that's the celebration film. Right. And how the movie is tipping its hat to the legacy and the entire run of the franchise up until that point.
So who actually celebrates 53 years of James Bond? Come on.
Well, apparently Sony and Sam Mendes.
Which comes painfully apparent in this film. I thought we were already over with the celebrations in Die Another Day. We saw all how well that came off.
Yep.
And now we're doing it again. This movie is absolutely full of references to the old films. And so full as well that you have to kind of wonder, can't they create anything original? Okay, let's get to this in scene by scene. I have a lot to discuss.
I guess everybody has a lot to discuss about this film.
And it's not actually a very easy film to break down, Henrik. I felt that I had a lot of troubles kind of pointing my finger to, like, what are the actual keys? Where does this fall down? Why doesn't it actually work?
It is. You're absolutely right on that one. This is... It's really kind of a fascinating case.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the film, it's plain as day to you that the film doesn't work. Like it's right there in front of you, in full view, that the film is not working. That it is, in lack of a better word, it's a mess. But when you try to kind of pinpoint the exact reasons why it's a mess, then it gets actually surprisingly hard to say that it's because of this, and this. You can there are some key elements which I feel are kind of easy to point out. And this kind of being I would say the major plot twists around Blofeld are the most obvious ones. The most obvious features that do not work in the film. But that one plot twist alone does not really explain why nothing in the film works.
Right, it's a sum of many things. About the director for a moment, so Mendes first said no for Spectre. I remember this very well, and I was not expecting him to come back, but producers got what they wanted, and he later agreed to return to direct Bond as he found the long-term plans for the future of the franchise appealing in some way. Once again, I don't understand what he means by future of franchise appealing. Does he mean Spectre as Spectre, or why would he care about the future of the franchise, because he's not going to be involved in it anyway, except for Spectre?
And in what capacity did he actually see kind of a future for the franchise? Because once again, to tie down into the whole this is a mess discourse around the film, but in a way the film, it's trying to lay the bricks for the future franchise and continuation through Spectre, and at the same time it's kind of a closing of the book film, which kind of telegraphs to the audience that this was it. This is the final Bond adventure you're going to get, at least from Daniel Craig.
Yeah. I think when it comes to appeals of any kind regarding Spectre, I think he found the check the most appealing when it comes to Sam Mendes and Daniel Craig.
Most likely, I would say that the paycheck is kind of the key word here for. I would argue to most of the cast of the film.
Yeah, there is some artistic love for the project. I can tell that, but sometimes it's such of a mess that I don't even understand. Like why? What are you doing here? There's so many missed opportunities that were kind of would have been easily resolved if you would have done the exact opposite of what you just did.
Yup. You did remark that this is one of the most expensive films ever made, and when it comes to love, when it comes to budget, you actually can kind of see you can see the budget and you can see the love in sets,
Yeah.
in some of the cinematography,
Yeah.
in locations. You can see that millions have been burned on sets and locations and high class actors, and $50 has been burned on the script.
Spectre, the unfortunate victim of bad influences, the Dark Knight has been mentioned as such. Captain America, the Winter Soldier has been mentioned. Also Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, although it came out in the same year of Spectre, so I don't know how far that goes as far as influences. But do you see the parallels to Mission Impossible Rogue Nation? I haven't seen that movie in a long time, and I get all my Mission Impossibles always mixed up, but yeah.
I see some parallels. Not that obvious one. I would say the biggest line that you can draw between Spectre and Rogue Nation is the good guys spy organization going against their kind of a evil counterpart type of scenario here. If you would take Spectre as some kind of a anti-spy organization.
And there's some kind of a C character there as well, like trying to destroy the organization from inside out.
Yeah, that too. That too. Even though that aspect perhaps is better done in Spectre.
Okay. And I feel very much that also Skyfall for sure, mirrors the Dark Knight cinematographically and mood-wise. Skyfall is different in structure, where I feel that it still, if I'm not really exactly the biggest fan of the film, I feel that it tightens the rope by the end, although transforms into a Home Alone at the end. But it's still something where you feel the tension as an audience, and you don't necessarily know what to expect. When it comes to Spectre, it's kind of, you can anticipate everything that's coming next.
Skyfall, essentially, it's the Bond film where Bond goes against a psychopathical master tactician. Essentially, the Joker of Bond universe.
Yes, the character of Silva, who was also, believe it or not, he was also ham-fistedly tied into the Spectre organization, who was actually supposed to be some kind of a lone wolf, which I think made more sense because we were living in this age that, all the information is out there, and the terrorists can use, information age to their advantage or something like this, and anybody can kind of snap and do this given some resources. But
yeah, and in Silva's case, Silva's main motivation came from disenfranchisement with MI6 and this feeling of maternal betrayal from M's part. Silva's kind of the main plot in Skyfall was to take revenge on M for personal reasons, for being left behind by M years ago. Yeah, that kind of doesn't really tie into that well into the whole concept of Silva was just one lieutenant in a bigger organization, and I guess everything that happened in Skyfall, which Silva said was done for personal reasons, in the end was done as some kind of a 3D chess masterstroke from Spectre's behalf.
And essentially, I feel that Silva and as well as Oberhauser in Spectre, they are doing the same thing. They are playing on the weaknesses of the information age. I think It's very much the same film that he's making, but albeit a
It,
weaker.
it deals with the same core problem. They take a different approach to the problem. In Skyfall, the information age is problem because everybody can get information and then leak it out to the public and control the flow of the information. Like I can steal the secrets and then post them on YouTube or sell them to a hostile government. And in Spectre, it's still the same core problem, but here the problem is more in the vein of immoral government can take and steal a private citizen's personal information and control that citizen this way, and how far in the end kind of the trail of breadcrumbs can go. Like, who is the final kind of a king figure of all the gathered information, and how much power does that person hold through all the information that he can acquire.
Sam Mendes, who is known, of course, apart from Skyfall and Spectre of 1917, that he just recently directed and wrote to Perdition, where, he was also working with Daniel Craig on that one. So they have some collaboration history. Anything else from Sam Mendes that we might have missed?
When it comes to Sam Mendes' directorial career, I would say the most you could get out of it podcast-wise would have been cracking all the jokes about how the dude who made American Beauty is now trying to make an action film, except that Sam Mendes also made Skyfall and actually proved that he can make an action film, making all those jokes kind of worthless. But something you can see in Spectre is kind of the Bond franchise also trying to build up its cinematic universe. I get very heavy Marvel made it work. We all must copy it vibes when I look at the kind of the groundwork that Spectre tries to lay out.
Absolutely. This is 100% there, trying to imitate the trend. Here it's happening you will see, in a quite forced way, I would argue.
Yeah, it's kind of is a problematic when you have made a huge ton of films, or at least 3 beforehand. They all been individual and separate from each other, and then on the 4th film you decide that no, we are going to use all the movies to build up a universe.
Right, and that kind of changes the whole way that you look at the films from the past. It's kind of like some Halloween film makes a retcon later on in the series, and something happens to a film like Halloween H2O in a way. And I was actually very much looking for the Daniel Craig films to get out of that franchising universe thing. Just get back to the basics where you were in the beginning and where you've been for the most of the Bond runs, and just stop making sequels and make individual great films that can stand on their own without any baggage or history from the past, just like it always was. But no, there were also rumors that Christopher Nolan would have been directing this film, but he turned Spectre down to make Interstellar. And this despite his quote of something deep love for the franchise. I don't know. Interstellar. Well, these are both not very good movies, so...
Well, Interstellar still is a better film than Spectre.
Yeah, might be.
Like, it's still quite enjoyable sci-fi yarn. Even though... after all the hard science that went into Interstellar, I guess Nolan found the undeniable proof that love conquers all, and bends time and space.
That it did. Before we dive in, let's still talk about Hoyt van Hoytema. He is now the DP, or the director of photography for Spectre, known also for Låt den rätte komma in, or Let the Right One In, this teenage, coming-of-age, what have you, vampire horror drama from Sweden, which we watched on one of those Kauhajoen festivals that I organized. I have no recollection of the film. I remember it had some great cinematography indeed. That's about it. And he has also done Ad Astra, Interstellar, Dunkirk.
Yeah, he's kind of I would say, go-to cinematographers for Christopher Nolan. Nolan really likes to work with that dude.
Okay.
And I kind of can see why. I do think that Hoitama's style works well with kind of this also a bit lagonistic storytelling that Nolan himself prefers.
Here it comes. Would it be seen by Zine?
I guess we really have to reach the point eventually.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Might as well get the hell out of Dodge and build my own crime syndicate.
Let's hit the scene by scene while the corona pandemic is still going strong. Because it's kind of a feeling that we deal with Spectre amidst a global healthcare crisis.
I heard that the virus might be like the essential part of the No Time to Die story. Would have been kind of an unfortunate theme for the times. But let the spectral analysis begin. Okay. Once again, we have this drunken assassin who sees several gun barrels at one time as they go on the screen to the right side. And just when he gets focused and tries to follow, Bond, but he gets killed for the 22nd time or what have you at this point. So you never start to play music during the MGM logos and other logos before the gun barrel. You just don't. You keep the audiences on their feet, and the gun barrel is the thing that is supposed to be breaking the silence and bring the adrenaline pumping. So why change that? And what's with this lazy design of the gun barrel? Like, where did all the 3D effects go from the Pierce Brosnan era? Why is it flat like some kind of a cardboard on the right side and I suppose on the left side as well? Why is it made to look so mechanical and forced? Let's just get this over with type of gun barrel. Why is it the same kind of blood that you have in Casino Royale, which really isn't that impressive anyway? And the blood runs down really quickly. The barrel doesn't even shake from left to right when the guy shoots into the barrel. The dot doesn't open the scene. Why?
The biggest guess would be that what the film is trying to do is, I don't know, maybe play homage to the first gun barrels.
It just feels lazy to me. This is followed by an on-screen text titles, which says that the dead are alive. Why? I don't think it serves any purpose here. Like it was pointed by many people, it's as corny or tacky or useless as putting something in the beginning of, say, Moonraker. We're traveling to the moon. It would see you would see that text on the screen. What kind of a purpose does it give to you? I think it's pointless.
Essentially, since the film itself opens into the Day of the Dead, which is precisely actually the same goddamn situation. Like it's a celebration for the day when the dead can come from the afterlife and visit their loved ones in this world.
Right, and I think at the same time it's a nice little reference to the fact that Oberhauser has been supposedly dead for the last 20 years, and the past of James Bond is coming to haunt him in the way of the organization Spectre. But still, I think it would have been more effective if you just open to the Day of the Dead and that's it. But this whole Day of the Dead is most likely coming from inspiration from Live and Let Die. So we're starting with the references basically already. Because in Live and Let Die you have this funeral for the dead people from, is it Jamaica or what? And they have this tradition that it's going to be a little bit happier funeral than what we have been gotten used to here in, for example, Finland or Poland or Europe. We have a very nice tracking shot, begins from one of these skeletons, then gives like a wide, open view of the street and follows one guy dressed in white as he goes along to the opposite direction to the rest of the crowd. And then the camera pans to the direction of somebody wearing a skeleton suit once again with this beautiful lady next to him. More than thousands of extras were used for this scene. Long single take, but not as long as you might think. There's at least 2 cuts or 3 cuts when they enter the building. That's at least one. When it goes to the poster in the image, and then when Bond exits the building. And I'm not sure if you can really even tell that they're there, even when you start to look at them and you know that they're there. they're really smoothly cut. Skyfall cues are all over the soundtrack as well. There's also an interesting approach where Thomas Newman, the composer, was writing music for this film before he even got the actual film, because normally how it goes, you get the finished cut and then you start composing for that cut. But it wasn't fully the case here. Seems like there has been a lot of rush involved in the project in many levels. This kind of a long tracking that we see in this scene, it's kind of a pre-something 1917, because of course in the film 1917 Sam Mendes goes full crazy on this, and it kind of looks like a entire one long take, the entire film. Maybe you could see there like 2 points where the kind of the storytelling or the time cuts and then you continue later. But yeah, then there is the Mexican color correction cliche. Like, of course, Henrik, since we are in Mexico, we're gonna have this dry heat feeling with this very yellowish tinted picture. And you see it in TV series, you see it everywhere in pop culture on the film. Mexico is always apparently shown in this way. Also, I remember in X-Files, and to the point where it was starting to be kind of annoying. But the drumming music by Thomas Newman in this opening scene is excellent. I really love how this movie starts with the music. I really love the horns that start playing when James Bond starts to walk on the edge of the building, looking cool as hell in his Tom Ford suit and what have you. That is my favorite part of the film.
The opening altogether is kind of the best part of the movie, and the sequence that, at least to me, looks like the one that they put most work and most thought into.
Yeah, they definitely get adrenaline pumping in the opening scene of the pre-title sequence. My problem is only that it's not quite as good as they were hyping it.
No, there are things that work in the opening, and then there are things that don't work. In my opinion, what mostly doesn't work is the action and the kind of the bigger action set pieces.
Yeah, one of my problems is the upcoming helicopter scene, but let's talk about that in a moment.
Oh boy.
Yeah. By the way, Henrik, like random confusing question for you. Which political figure does Daniel Craig remind you of the most?
I actually don't know. Don't follow political figures nearly enough to make any callbacks.
Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, perhaps now that you mention it.
Yeah, I think this reference has been made before somewhere. So Bond is on the rooftop and crouches behind this small wall and listens on the discussion, which is in Italian. Welcome, Signor Sciarra. When do we blow up the stadium? And then I visit the Pale King, and they drink to death. Bottoms up, Bond says, and then somebody spots Bond, and Bond shoots a couple of guys, and then shoots into the briefcase, which sets out a huge explosion. Most apparently the suitcase where the bomb was located. And there is your compulsory explosion. Oh boy. So we're once again exploding buildings. I'm sorry, I understand this is an action film and this is how you basically do action films nowadays, but we're like, 4 or 5 minutes into the film and we're already exploding a building. And it's basically the same thing that happened in Casino Royale. It's coming down. Now it's destroying the adjacent building, and there's so much CGI going on.
I too kind of had a problem with the building explosions in Spectre. They didn't bother me in Casino Royale, where I felt that they were still done rather realistically. And when the explosions happened, the Bone's superhuman qualities were not so much in your face. But in here, you once again you get the more hokey action movie Bond, where Bond is running away from explosions and running away from collapses and stuff like that. And basically the whole sequence to me rings very much like the sinking building in Venice in the last minutes of Casino Royale.
Yeah, it feels like a complete callback to that, even if it wasn't intentional at all. So now Bond, of course, falls through the crack of the of the building and then conveniently lands on a sofa. Now, I give credit for this finding for a YouTube channel called Films and Stuff, where they pointed out to a Pixar storytelling rule, which is coincidences to get characters into trouble are great, but coincidences to get them out of it are cheating. And that's what happens with the sofa.
I don't know. I actually do think that the sofa is one of the best things of the film. And like not the sofa itself, but Daniel Craig makes the sofa work, because when Bond finally lands on the sofa, the expression on Craig's face also is kind of he has this, well, how the fuck did that happen look on his face. And I think that's really what makes the whole scene work.
Yeah, of course it's meant for comedic value, and in that way it works, but I thought it was a bit hokey. It's hard to explain.
I appreciated a lot the fact that they did make the notion that even Bond himself doesn't believe what just happened. And that was something that I actually ended up missing for the rest of the film, where Bond goes through similar type of situations, but in those cases now Bond just believes it, and it somehow makes complete sense to him that this is how he gets away from this situation and that situation.
Right. This is one of the key differences that I feel with Skyfall and Spectre. While in Skyfall, it was really smartly developed from the beginning, where you have Bond who falls off the train, then gets off the MI6 services, and has kind of lost his edge, is out of shape, all of that. Then he tries to get back into service, and he's struggling with that. And we emphasize with him, we see why we are afraid on his behalf, even though we know it's James Bond, it's going to be fine, we're all right. But there's this built extra tension in the storytelling, because we don't know exactly what to expect, because he's not in the top form. Whereas in Spectre, he's back to Superman.
Yeah.
Plane fight. So one interesting point would be, why are they lifting off if Bond is on board? But they do. And I keep wondering why people think this pre-title sequence is that good. Like it's supposed to be one of the best in the franchise. Like, come on. They definitely...
I don't understand that either.
Right? Like, they definitely marketed it as such. And they do a lot of these things. You know, we have Monica Bellucci, we have a helicopter fight, which we have had in like 5 Bond movies. Okay, not exactly. I will get into the details, but... Spectre's action scene problem is that for some reason, like, none of these action scenes really get my adrenaline flowing. Whereas in Skyfall it was working better, at least. Way better.
I would kind of make the case that why Spectre fumbles its action is that it takes the action back into the superhuman superhero spy action set pieces. And for some reason, Daniel Craig kind of can't bring out that feeling that Bond feels that this is a dangerous situation. Like the stoic nature that has been the calling card of Daniel Craig's Bond, in Spectre it actually turns against this character. And I would say that why that is because Bond, in Spectre, Bond ends up with this outlandishly dangerous and hectic action situations, like the helicopter fight where the helicopter starts to make goddamn somersaults and barrel rolls and God knows what, and your Bond essentially is having a fist fight in a helicopter that could crash very easily. This is still in the middle of city center where they are hovering above of, and where he, just one badly landing punch could just, throw him off the helicopter into a free fall and make him to splatter on the ground. And when you have those kind of action moments, it kind of turns against the aim of getting audiences to feel the action and feel the threat when your main character just, keeps his cool the entire time and in no moment expresses that this is somehow threatening situation to him.
Right. And in addition, I feel that Daniel Craig's James Bond might be the most troubled, or he has had the most misdirecting out of all the James Bond actors. For example, in Casino Royale, I think you have the perfect balance of humor and the toughness in a way of Dalton. In Quantum of Solace, it's more like a complete head-on revenge mission with very limited humor, maybe in a License to Kill way, but to a point where I feel that it's starting to not even really be a James Bond movie, and it's losing a lot of the things that they use in the franchise to make it feel like James Bond, which you could then argue probably that it would be either a bad or a good case. To deviate from that, I think Skyfall got back on the tracks, and now again Spectre. It's never the fault of Daniel Craig, I feel. It's just misdirecting. In Spectre, you have the Superman element for James Bond's character. And I also feel that Daniel Craig is trying to play James Bond as some kind of a very cool character. And now he's developed into this full agent that he has been growing into in the last 3 movies. Now he is proper James Bond, fully in the character. Which means that Daniel Craig has brought into his character even more of this assertiveness and coolness, which unfortunately on screen I feel just comes off as I'm bored. I don't want to be here. And I don't think that's what he's showing on the screen.
And that's kind of also my main question when it comes to Spectre and Daniel Craig, because that's exactly the reading I got from Craig when watching Spectre. That the feeling that the dude just doesn't give a fuck at this point. That he's here just, to appear on the scenes and cash in the paycheck. And I'm not sure if that's just poor direction from Sam Mendes' part, and if that's just a misguided attempt to kind of from Craig to have the character kind of grow and build up his Bond. And this is just going to be, a result from continuation of how Bond has been there and what Bond has gone through in the previous films. And if it just comes off wrong in the finished film, or is the case really that Daniel Craig really just doesn't wanna be here?
Yeah, I feel that there's a lot of script elements that make him feel kind of disgruntled, disillusioned with this world. Like, I don't give a shit in a character way, and it's also part of his kind of a masculinity act as James Bond. There are parts of dialogue, a lot of the jokes indicate that, for example, that all sounds lovely. And I think it's just this guy is so past the bureaucratic bullshit, he doesn't care.
Something that really does not help Daniel Craig here at all is the fact that the film itself is lazy.
Yeah.
Like somebody is really lacking off behind the screen. And once again, you say that it's not Craig, that Craig still works hard and tries to give out his best here.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And it's hard to pinpoint. Like, when you look at the film, you notice it's plain as a day that someone doesn't care. Someone is doing the bare minimum effort here to get the film done. But it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly who that person is. Is it Craig? Is it Sam Mendes? Is it the scriptwriter? The scriptwriter at least doesn't give a shit and is just getting you from plot point to plot point in a fastest way possible and trying to wrap up the entire film or the story as fast as possible. But is it the production company? Is there some forced editing going on that we are not aware of?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that fast as possible either, because this is one of the longest James Bond films ever, running for 2 hours, 20 minutes plus.
It's one of the longest, I give it that one, but once again, once we hit the infamous third act,
yeah,
you really start to notice that it just, like, something happens, and the film just, decides that, okay, we are done with the build-up, and now we just quickly wrap it all up.
Actually, I kind of like Spectre for the first half, but the second half something happens, as you said. Somewhere around the Italy parts, it just collapses.
There's a possibilities in Spectre
Yeah.
during the first half. And then it reaches the point where you just start to notice that at this point, this is a lost cause. And from that point onwards, you just see the whole house of cards just slowly collapsing under its own weight. You already see the problems in the opening scene, in the helicopter fight in the Mexico. That's when I first time saw the film, that's the first hint I got that this is going to be a rocky ride and we might be in trouble here. But I still was kind of like, maybe the film pulls it off. Who knows? There's possibilities. But then in Italy, there's actually there is an exact plot point that I can point to you where I finally noticed that whatever is going to happen with the film, it is beyond help. Like from this point onwards, this is not gonna get any better. This is just gonna be a downhill slope.
Did you notice that something might be off when you were watching the helicopter scene? Was that in the theaters or now on the second viewing?
It was already in theaters in my first experience with the film.
Yeah. Henrik, what is that? What is it too much too soon? We have already destroyed a fucking building and now we're in a helicopter having these loops. Is it too much? Is it...
For me, it was two things that happened. The first one was that it was, like you said, it was too much too soon. And at the same time, I noticed that I wasn't feeling it. And when I started to ask myself, why is this not engaging at all? I noticed that it comes down with Greg and it comes down with the direction, it comes down to cinematography. Like you have a stoic actor, you have a stoic direction, and you have a stoic cinematography going on all at once. And all that gives to you, it telegraphs to you that Bond does not feel that he's in danger when the action happens. He just reacts to what happens. Like the building collapse, run away, land on sofa. That's the only time that Bond actually has this, well, fuck me situation. And then the helicopter fights and Bond almost gets thrown out. The helicopter almost crashes. It steers out of control. And entire time you're kind of being signaled that Bond isn't feeling that he's in danger. And it's those two things that to me really makes it so that the action just doesn't get to me. And in the end, as the film goes on and you get more and more of these situations, in the end it starts to smell almost like desperation.
Like you said, you feel like the lack of stakes here. Like I said in Skyfall, at least you have this aspect that the agent is coming back to join MI6 and there is this risk that he might not be able to be the best shot in the world anymore. So this might affect on his way of carrying on the mission. Whereas I feel that in Spectre, the character of James Bond doesn't have any kind of arc whatsoever. I mean, this was normal in the old films, but I expect something a little bit different in Daniel Craig's films where, Casino Royale, we establish the character as something different, something more of a human. Something is at stake here. And Spectre does the opposite.
At least in Skyfall, Bond showed to you that he felt hurt, he felt betrayed, he was sad, he was angry, he was at times shocked by Silva's action and the cruelness that Silva showed. And in Spectre you get the exact same situations. You have the organization kind of not going with you, being against you. You get the red tape, you get the restrictions. Bond gets the feeling that he's being thrown out and left behind by MI6. And you get kind of this careless misusage of human life from the bad guys. And Bond doesn't really react to any of that, or he doesn't show that any of that has any kind of a emotional impact on him.
Yeah, there's so many things, so many doors to open throughout this film regarding that point. But just to get back to the helicopter, this is definitely not the first time that Bond struggles in a helicopter or a plane, which is Messerschmitt Belkov Blombo 105, if somebody's interested. But the first rotorcraft that could perform these aerobatic maneuvers, such as inverted loops. Well, if you want to see it there, you can see that this could be kind of doing the man with the golden gun car flip in a way as a reference. There is one of those shots. Maybe that's putting it a little bit too far, but I got some serious flashbacks of For Your Eyes Only, though in For Your Eyes Only, James Bond is more battling with the out-of-control helicopter, not any bad guys inside the helicopter, but nevertheless he's outside of the helicopter struggling, just like here.
And that film also has a bad guy controlling helicopter.
Yeah, but not fighting with.
In there it's remote, and there in here it's, well, the pilot itself is one of the bad guys.
I really don't understand why James Bond franchise repeats these same kind of vehicles in so many movies, same locations. Like James Bond has been in Rome at least 256 times. I mean, there's so many locations where you could shoot, but I think they take their favorite holiday destinations, the producers. I think that's what it
They
boils down to.
are also something that did happen, affect a lot on the shooting locations of Spectre, were the tax cuts that the countries were willing to give to you.
Yeah, this of course play a role, and costs in general. As we remember, Moonraker, the whole production was moved to France because, well, there was some serious issues with the UK tax laws, and the amounts that they would have paid for making Moonraker in the UK would have been quite astronomical compared to France, so that made perfect sense. But yeah, during this Mexico shoot, Craig also went to New York to have the minor knee surgery, and some shots of Mexico were done with stunt doubles, and Craig's face was digitally pasted in. But yeah, the bad guys have been thrown out of the helicopter. Bond smirks to himself, looks at the ring of Spectre with the octopus on it. We start the title sequence with the octopus ring and end the title scene with the octopus ring.
Yeah. Now the ring that Bond makes sure he snatches from the bad guy, even though Bond really doesn't have a faintest idea of what's the importance of the ring at this point.
Right. I thought it was a bit weird. But hey, maybe it was his memento of the skill, just smirking to himself that body count is going up.
Yeah, or maybe that was the only thing that, he anymore could have as any kind of a clue, evidence, ever since he throws everybody else off the helicopter and kills everybody in the collapsing building. And like you can make the argument that Bond kept on holding the ring simply because he hoped that it would have some importance in the story later on. Like he was hoping that maybe he could use it as a clue at some point. But once again, Bond seeing all this trouble just to snatch the ring off. It's kind of like, why do you care so much, Bond? Because at this point, all that Bond has going on for him is just one cryptic DVD message from M, telling him to go to Mexico, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, so the title sequence, once again done by Daniel Kleinman, as all of them since GoldenEye. Daniel Kleinman, who was working with the company called Framestar Company to bring his vision to life here. There's a lot of digital visual effects companies working on this movie. There's Industrial Light and Magic, Double Negative, Moving Picture Company, Cinesite, and Peerless. And mostly, which is great, they were going with the practical effects ahead in Spectre, but just to give like digital touch-ups to, some particles flying from helicopter, or in any case just advance certain scenes to make it look more pretty. Here we have the whiny falsetto ballet of Sam Smith that doesn't fit with the skull imagery, and is the replacement song to something that Radiohead already wrote for this film. Have you heard the Radiohead song Spectre?
No.
Wow, I think you should really listen to it. I really like it. I really like it. I understand it's really alternative music that you can expect from Radiohead. Not very radio friendly, I guess. So it was purely, I think, like a marketing decision to push Radiohead aside. The story goes Radiohead actually had a song from something that they had recorded before, and they offered this for the James Bond people. They said no. Then they decided between their extremely already hectic recording schedule when they were working on their new album that, okay, hey, we are going to write a new song from the scratch. Let's call it Spectre. And they also said no to that. And it was rejected, according to some reports, as being too melancholy. And Radiohead had something to say about that. Quote, "That fucking James Bond movie threw us a massive curveball," said Nigel Godrich. "It was a real waste of energy. We stopped doing what we were doing and had to concentrate on that for a while since we were told it was something that was going to come to fruition. I haven't seen the movie and I think they ended up with something more suitable for it, but in terms of making a moon-shaped pool, their album, it caused a stop right when we were in the middle of it." So, Sam Smith, your thoughts?
I really hate it. Like, I'm not completely against the openings. The opening of the film. Like, I do like the whole octopus tentacle hentai motif. Even though that might be my own personal preferences. I don't know. It stems from my porn consumption or something like that. But I do like the octopus imagery in the opening credits. But that's about it. That's the only thing that I actually do like. The credits themselves are really lazy. Like, it's essentially it's scenes and clips from the film kind of recreated, throw in tentacles, have a switch into a thing, now Bond and Lady are falling from the sky type of situation. And the Sam Smith song, people actually defend writing on the wall by making the accusation that if you don't like the song, it's simply because you are homophobic and you don't like Sam Smith because he's homosexual. But you know, Smith's sexual preferences aside, I can't stand the song, and I can't stand Smith's singing of the song.
Yeah.
And I can't fucking understand what the hell the song actually has to do with the film itself. Like for example, to take the chorus of the song. How do I live? How do I breathe when you're not here? I'm suffocating. I want to feel love run through my blood. Tell me, is this where I give it all up? For you, I would risk it all. Which essentially is kind of like a love song thing. Like telling about your passion towards another person. Without you, I'm suffocating. I wanna feel love. And it's kind of like a question of love towards who? Really? The random lady that Bond meets in Spectre halfway through the film, which kinda is just, you know, your random I get sex from here female Bond girl, like there has been in every single goddamn film up until this point. Like, this film's Bond girl is not the love of Bond's life. That was Vesper in Casino Royale. That was supposed to be that one woman to whom Bond could have sacrificed his life as a super spy. And when it comes to Spectre, I don't feel the chemistry. I don't see the connection. I really don't understand why this would be the lady that for who Bond would be willing to risk it all.
Yeah, this is a general criticism of the so-called relationship in the film, that it's way too manufactured, way too unbelievable, and so ham-fistedly developed that everybody's just laughing when some romantic is happening because nobody buys it.
Yeah, the actors don't really deliver it. Like nothing that the actors do actually says to the audience that these two characters care about each other. It's just, that they are they are both ice cold.
Right.
Throughout the movie, and then at the final moments, all of a sudden it's the love story of the ages.
This is something that happened in Quantum of Solace. You have two actors, lead actors, the woman and Bond. They are both ice cold. And they don't even go to bed in that film or have really anything going on. And I feel it could play exactly the same way here. And I was kind of expecting that. You get these reactions from Swan that, no, I'm not going to seek for solace from my dead daddy from your arms or something like that. Yeah, I was expecting that to be like that it's going to be completely platonic between them. Alas, but we will get to that later.
This is kind of a Skyfall romance situation also in the note that, like in Quantum, also here in Spectre, the whole chemistry and the whole relationship between the two characters starts from them essentially hating and just wanting to use each other. Like Bond seeks in Spectre, Bond seeks out Swan simply because he needs the next lead. That's the whole motivation for Bond starting to operate with Swan. I need to find Le American. And Swan in return hates Bond for feeling that Bond is to be in fault for the bad guys finding Swan and putting her life on the line. That's where the relationship starts. And then the film just kind of tries to convince to you that they somehow find the common note and start to become affectionate towards each other.
Yeah, when it comes to this whole title sequence, I feel that it's too three-dimensional. If you think about the beginnings of the James Bond title sequences, and I've said this before, I really like that they have this 2D aspect to them. And there's different ways that you can do cinematography. If you're doing a cartoon, you want it to have a certain kind of a 2D appeal to the perspective. And that's the same reason, I guess, why I like the old cartoons so much as I do. For example, something like the classic age Disney, like the Lion King or Bambi or whatever you have on the plate. And that's the kind of appeal that I remember from the old James Bond films. And that's what I'm not finding anymore in these Daniel Kleinman title sequences. Apart from something like Casino Royale, it's there. It has this card theme. It looks like it has been painted or drawn.
Something you also don't find in Spectre's opening credits sequence is callbacks to Quantum of Solace, which also becomes kind of a running theme in the film.
You're right, avoiding green everywhere.
As much as you humanly can.
Yeah.
And that's, but like, as the film goes on, that becomes, it even reaches a point of being ridiculous.
Which is something you really shouldn't have done. I mean, if you're going to use something, you could have used green, you could have used Le Chiffre, you could have used this Oberhauser dude. But Silva, who really doesn't, you don't even as an audience feel that he was ever part of Spectre, but green obviously could have been easily fit into that mold.
Yeah, and it kind of like the length the film goes in order to make the audience forget that Quantum of Solace ever happened. At the same time as it's playing this kind of calling back to the previous movies game, it comes, or it turns out to be really ironic when you actually see the quality of Spectre.
Exactly. No, it's kind of the same case for Spectre as Quantum of Solace now.
I would say for Spectre it's even worse. Like when Spectre came out, outside of maybe me, the whole world agree that Quantum of Solace was essentially a train wreck. I do agree that it used to be Greg's worst Bond film. I didn't hate it as much as everybody else, but the common consensus was that Quantum of Solace didn't work, and it was hot garbage. So I do get that Spectre does wants the audience to forget Quantum of Solace, but oh boy, it would have worked better if Spectre would have been a better film.
You know, these audio description tracks on the Blu-rays nowadays, or maybe also DVDs, where you have this guy telling what is happening on the screen for the people who have a vision impairment. Yeah, that's kind of a nice feature. Also, you can kind of build your vocabulary if you're just listening to it, even if you see normally. There was this part during this title sequence that kind of made me laugh. Quote, "The octopus tentacles wrap around a nude female figure, and Ray Fiennes as M." That would be some disturbing imagery.
Altogether, octopus tentacles wrapping around a nude female body is, I would say that is something that the Japanese has forever tarnished for the entire world. So maybe not use that image ever. Like, cross that one out. Sam Mendes for the next film, whatever it's gonna be, you know, in the planning meeting, please cross out the part which has nude female body and octopus tentacles. you don't want to be making those connections.
Or naked Ray Fiennes.
Or that either. Altogether, nakedness and octopus tentacles, that's a no direction.
We get to Ray Fiennes' office as he's playing M. We were just discussing Ray Fiennes a lot in the Coriolanus episode. If you haven't listened to that yet, I heavily suggest that you do. Merger with MI5 is about to take place, of course, and Bond is grounded from all operations indefinitely. I get this Goldfinger vibes from this. It's kind of a similar office discussion as you have after the Goldfinger incident at the pool area. Max Danby is C. Why does Bond call him C from the beginning? I have no idea. But then later on, as the story progresses, everybody's calling him C. So I guess it kind of catched on. British intelligence is to be gotten out of the Dark Ages, and Bond is just like, that all sounds lovely. Weird dialogue. Like, weird. Really? What is this? Like, it lacks punch, don't you think? Why?
It kind of lacks punch. It also kind of lacks direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because the British intelligence in Bond films altogether, it's never been in the Dark Ages. Bond films make the case that British intelligence altogether is kind of highly advanced, very high tech. They have God knows what surveillance and tracking applications and softwares. They have the nano machines to track down the operatives. Had already they implanted the tracking chip on Bond already in Casino Royale. So what's the famous Dark Ages except using actual human assassins instead of drone strikes?
Well, it's once again the same thing. I think what happens with like James Bond trying to be current and his character being constantly reminded how the world has moved on and Euro has been. This happens in Skyfall. Like Moneypenny even makes some kind of a point about maybe this old dog can learn a few new tricks. Or what was it during the barber scene? Then in Spectre, it's kind of like we're all about technology and you're this old tool out of the box and let's see how this goes. Kind of like Skyfall. And then in No Time to Die trailer, it's again like, the world has moved on, Commander. How does it move on so goddamn much every time?
In Skyfall, and well, at least in the trailer of No Time to Die, it still makes sense because in Skyfall, Bond had been out of active service and he had been boozing on for some time. He was, I guess, somewhat washed out drunk when he once again rejoined M to take down Silva. And in what I've gathered from the 2 times I've checked out the trailer for No Time to Die, it looks like the scenario is that Bond has been retired for some time now.
Yeah.
And he's once again coming back to the service. So in that case, it does kind of make sense that Bond is seen as an old dog, as someone who can't really do the job, and who has been left behind. But that kind of only goes as far as Bond himself, Bond as a character. Spectre makes the case that the entire MI6, the entire 00 program at least, is kind of has fallen behind the times. And I still kind of a question like how in God's name has that happened? Like how do you drone strike a whitewashed North Korean dictator in his battle armor who is using space laser satellites to destroy a minefield? Like, how do you drone strike that one? How do you not need an actual human person to go face off the general and pull that trigger?
Moneypenny comes to inform Bond of the personal stuff collected from that better movie called Skyfall. This movie just really wants to make the connections, and I don't see why. But, of course, here it's got an integral story part. That's how it's built. In Bond's flat, there's the psychoanalysis of Bond from Moneypenny. You've got a secret. At this point, we as an audience know the secret. It's that Bond has read the script for Spectre and he didn't like it. Phooey, yuck.
But I do appreciate the fact that we finally actually see Bond's flat. And when it comes to Bond as a character, I do feel that the flat actually is the most telling, the most character part of the film. Because in here you see this lavish apartment which has a big view and which must cost like a fortune. And then you see how Bond just squanders it completely and doesn't own any furniture, doesn't own even basic groceries. It's just a bottle of scotch and a TV. But like the flat is so bare bones and so unappealing that Bond couldn't even bring his casual conquests into the apartment.
Yeah, we also see, I believe it's the same flat. Well, it's they want to represent it as the same flat as you see in Skyfall, where in Skyfall James Bond's flat has been put to some auction because he has been away too long. And the flat, yeah, it's kind of everything that I always expected the James Bond flat to be. Kind of he's always on the go, and I suppose that's the reason that his flat looks like a garage.
I took it that it's simply because James Bond, especially Daniel Craig's James Bond, is kind of a broken man inside.
Okay.
There's a running theme of the toll that James Bond's job takes on him, and the fact that his role as a government assassin who has to go on these larger than life situations and has to constantly kill people is kind of eating him up from inside. You see this in Casino Royale where he tries to deal with killing 2 persons by going to his bathroom, looking at his mirror reflection, and just quickly coughing down a huge glass of scotch. Like, kind of drowning his emotions and his feelings. You see it in the way how Bond integrates outside of MI6 after he's being shot down, where he's just immediately becomes washed up drunk, who has way too much time on his hands and doesn't know what to do. You even kinda get it in Spectre, where Am gives his speech about how the license to kill is also a license not to kill. How there is a disconnect between something like ordering a drone strike and you being there in a person, looking someone else into the eye as you pull that trigger and kill that person.
Yeah. It's that broken character And it also makes an interesting point because outside of his flat, James Bond is always very into this like, lavish lifestyle. But it doesn't show up in his flat in any way.
No, it's almost like a shell that James Bond uses. It kind of is once again it's the Casino Royale situation where he has his game face on and all the nice things, all the hot cars and the tailor-made clothes that he uses. They are just a bluff which he uses to hide what he really is.
That's right. This M on tape trick. What to say about this? This provided to mailbox after she has died in that Skyfall movie. And she's explaining that if anything happens to me in the movie Skyfall, please find a man called Sam Mendes. Just kidding. His name is Marco Sciarra. But this is a stupid idea.
It is. It hints to you that Judi Dench's aim was already at least on some level suspicious or on knowing of Spectre somehow and never actually saw it fit to do anything with that knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's something that M could have easily informed of Bond in the previous adventure and not do a
Maybe. Or inform British government, seeing how Spectre is the all-encompassing, all-engulfing bad guy super league of master criminals or some shit like that. Like you would think that if you suspect that kind of organization exists, you would try to at least tell someone about it, to warn somebody off, especially seeing how much fuss they made out of the Quantum group just previously. And Spectre is supposed to be Quantum on steroids. So why do you keep your mouth shut? Why is the only thing that you actually say about the matter just a cryptic DVD message which doesn't even tell anything to Bond except, hey, get your ass to Mexico? What it does in this film's case is that it undermines Ralph Fiennes' M, who now doesn't really have any bearing when it comes to, the Spectre part of the plot. M is, in here, M is almost solely tied down to the Nine Eyes plot, which, ties with Spectre in the end, but for the longest time those are two separate plot lines. And when it comes to the larger plotline, Investigate Spectre, M has shit all to do with it.
It puts M in a really weird position. Like, is he protecting somebody from Spectre and he's giving the green light to kill somebody from Spectre only after somebody from Spectre has killed her? So Bond's been tracking Sciarra ever since Skyfall's script ended, and he's going through the Skyfall files now from Moneypenny. Order of temporary guardianship, it says. Bond forgot who taught him half of his spy skills. He just can't quite remember. And that also causes that he just quite doesn't give a shit throughout the runtime of this film of who Oberhauser is. Oh, that's how it feels to me.
I kind of felt that it partly worked here. That the whole Bond is adopted a thing. It's mostly because it was already caught to light very quickly in Casino Royale, where Vesper makes the notion that Bond most likely is adopted, or has been in some part of his life.
Mm.
And that kind of could lead into why Bond feels disconnected from the world and why organizations, strict structures like MI6 army would appeal to Bond, and why something like MI6 would be eager to recruit someone like Bond to their ranks. So on that level, the adoption, I did feel that it quite fit the story, and it wasn't ham-fistedly shoehorned into Spectre's plot. What the film does with the adoption, however, is a completely different case.
Right, because it really doesn't do much. could have done something, but then in the end it's like, we need to break it down.
Well,
but yeah.
Yeah.
So MI6 HQ has been destroyed. New C-ticks are very close there. So what are we to believe here? So C consensuously attends some kind of a Bilderberg meetings, since, quote, in 3 days there's a security conference in Tokyo to decide the new world order, unquote. Wow.
And my take is that it's just a meeting between the heads of different departments of secret services from all these different nations.
Or influencing some people, like sharing some pesos with Jeff Bezos. Who knows?
I would say that Pesos is most definitely not in this case.
Yeah.
Pesos is Oppenheimer, who is behind C, yeah. But the rest of the like what the meetings are just once again it's intelligence officer bureaucrats meeting each other to negotiate about how the interaction or how the switch in the Nine Eyes is going to happen.
If C gets his way, he will have unlimited access to the combined intelligence streams of 9 countries. And during this scene, we see on speedboat or such Tanner and Daniel Craig's James Bond. And we're going under the breaches of Thames like we did in The World Is Not Enough opening scene. And we have been quite a lot on the Thames River, especially in The World Is Not Enough. And I don't know, you can think it as a callback or you can also not. And while Bond was away from the action, there was a train bombing in Hamburg and a CGI explosion in Tunisia, which is playing into C's hands conveniently. The guy is a big advocate of CGI explosions after all. Maybe that's what C stands for. But Q has set his new hideout under this bridge. Q stands, of course, for cucumber sandwich. And we get to the first proper cucumber scene of the Craig era. You may feel a small prick, he says, as we turn into the new kind of tracking capability of the completely Jurassic Age MI6. Smart blood.
Yeah, nanomachines, once again.
Microchips in your bloodstream. It's actually uttered during the film. Microchips in your bloodstream. The fuck?
Yeah, like how do they even work? And if you take Spectre on the question, they barely actually do. Or if they do, they don't actually do anything. Because the whole smart blood thing is something that the film really does nothing with.
Kinda? Why does it have to be blood? Anyway.
Why does it even have to be there? This is the situation where this is kind of the Casino Royale situation where a huge fuss is being made about a tracking chip implanted into Bond, so that his superiors can keep an eye on where he is going. And then in Spectre, they don't really do pretty much like anything with that tech and with the ability to track Bond. It's essentially it's used. Is it only once in the film where somebody actually really uses the knowledge of being able to track Bond to arrange a meeting with Bond? Like, does Q use the smart blood to be able to find the clinic and have a meeting with Bond?
Yeah, that's what I would heavily suspect. But then again, why can't it be just some kind of a regular microchip? Okay, Bond would use a knife and try to take it off, but smart blood. Okay, that's actually microchips in your bloodstream. That's what the movie is trying to sell to you. And Q goes to explain, you see those readouts? We can monitor your vital signs from anywhere on the planet. And Bond answers what? I guess this is going to be... He's trying to be shown as very funny because he's kind of a nonchalant, doesn't care about the situations that he's in, and says, well, that sounds marvelous. But once again, this feels confusing, and even Q gets soon confused. And the dialogue continues. Call it the post-Mexico insurance policy, by direct order from M. And Bond responds, I completely understand. So, Then they also play some quirky Bond theme variation in the background, and Q gets all confused at this point. I don't know why exactly, but he does, and to be fair, Bond replies are quite puzzling, and I don't even know what the hell for. Like, what is Q supposed to feel at this moment? I guess Q is just confused that James Bond is acting so warmly to all of this information that he's going to be tracked, but their responses from Bond are a bit puzzling. And Bond gets a watch, and the watch is supposed to only help with the punctuality issues. It tells the time, and it's suggested therefore that it's not supposed to do anything else. And 5 seconds later, the movie explains that it has a quite loud alarm, if you know what you mean. And Bond thinks he knows what he means, so this then suggests that it is actually an explosive, and we will see that it is an explosive. But the fact that it is, it ruins the joke just 5 seconds earlier that this is just telling the time. That would be nice.
It would have been nice, and it would have also been keeping with the cue of Daniel Craig era of James Bond, because in the previous films, Q has been shown as a really kind of a low-tech character. Skyfall made a big notion about how the only thing that Q gives to Bond is essentially is a fingerprint locked gun, and that's about it. And that really isn't anything that big. That's really low tech in today's day and age.
Yeah, I kind of like that fingerprint detecting thing. Yeah, I remember that you hated it in License to Kill, but I think it's one of those low-tech devices and something that kind of makes sense to have.
It works in Daniel Craig's universe of Bond.
Okay.
And I do like the fact that in these more modern Bond films, Q is not some kind of a gadget wizard who has... Like I have been more than ready to get rid of exploding watches, any kind of a laser cutter watches, any kind of a magnetic shoes, grappling hook belt bucklers, and all this other, spy gadgetry bullshit that usually goes on with Bond films. And because of that, it's kind of so disheartening to see that what Spectre does is once again fall back into the old tropes. Give Bond a supercar that has machine guns once again implanted into it. Give him an explosive watch. I didn't need any of that. I was actually quite happy to see that the franchise had finally let them go.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so confusing also in the car chase sequence later in Italy. You have a car chase, but what this massive amount of things to discuss about it. But the main thing is that, they both have... Well, Bond has gadgets in this car, but then they're not really used, except at the last second. And it feels like the filmmakers are kind of like question marks throughout the street chase. Like, what the fuck are we going to do with these cars? Because they don't have any tricks up their sleeves, or that we don't want to use these tricks because audience expects something more grounded.
And because the rest of the film also is, or at least tries to be, grounded, at least on some level.
Yeah.
Like, Spectre as a movie, it doesn't go into the goofball extravaganza direction of Brosnan's Bonds. It doesn't throw you another bad guy who also has a supercar, so you can have a supercar missile fight on an ice playing field. So Spectre kinda it gives Bond a car which makes Bond way too strong against his opposition if he would be able to use it. So now Bond has a wonder car that hasn't loaded any bullets into it, so he can't use the miniguns.
Yeah, when it comes to this exploding weaponry, so Bond gets an exploding watch. While just in the last movie, as it has been famously pointed out, he was just told that they don't really go for these exploding pens anymore. But I guess exploding Omegas are still on board.
I guess consistency is something that really exploded in the script.
Yes. Continued dialogue. May I remind you that I answer directly to M. I also have a mortgage and 2 cats to feed. Well, then I suggest you trust me for the sake of the cats.
Which has Bond threatening Q and his livelihood. Like a good
Basically,
chump he is.
you could make that stretch. Yeah, and finally Q reminds Bond that during Spectre there might be an odd drop in plot logic for 24 hours or 48 hours. Moneypenny at her desk. So she receives something from an admirer. There was something underneath that package. What was it again? Oh, she gets a cell phone. Yeah, I guess it's just crap to keep in contact with Bond. M is, of course, too prestigious to check on Moneypenny's birthday on Facebook, and Moneypenny feels very offended. Bond takes 009's car, and Bond goes to the funeral of Sciarra. Sciarra. It's written in this film as Sciarra. Funnily enough, when it's written in this way, in Italian, you would pronounce this then as Sciarra, but it's always pronounced as Sciarra. Some Italian people were not impressed with this throughout the film.
It's nice to see that not just us, but also a $300 million film production can have some real problems with pronouncing names.
All the money in the world and still can't pull it off. Oberhauser leaves the party widow's days. There's a life insurance offer from James. And Bond says, I hear the life expectancy of some widows can be very short. You remember what happened in Casino Royale? There was this certain line, quote, well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy. So what is up with this constant referencing and so randomly? Like, at least I am pulling this as a reference to Casino Royale. God. Then we go to Widow's home. Lucia Sciarra, played by Monica Bellucci. Everybody said that she's kind of an older Bond lady, and due to that only, she's an interesting choice. Well, of course, she's also Monica Bellucci, so these two factors. And the funny thing is that she's the perfect match age-wise for Daniel Craig, as Bellucci was born in 1964 and Craig in 1968, so they are roughly the same age. And by God, I would have loved to see these two guys at the end of the film driving with the Aston Martin to the sunset, whatever it was, to the end credits.
Same here. Then again, after all the fuss was made about Bellucci appearing in the film, you get, 5 minutes of her?
Of course, yeah.
In total. Yeah, naturally. That's how it goes.
Like, marketing hype just as well as it was with the Day of the Dead. Although I kind of like that, but...
Yeah, and to kind of top that off, I would say character-wise, you would have even had a better chemistry with Craig and Bellucci's characters than what you have between Bond and Swan. You would have had kinda, sorta the same starting off point. Bond is present in somebody's death, and that death kind of puts the lady's life in danger. Swan is in danger because of his dad, and Lucia is in danger because Bond threw her husband out of a helicopter. So the starting point is the same, but where Swan would have essentially been better off if Bond would have never actually shown his face to her. Lucia is somebody who actually would started off being somewhat dependent on Bond's protection and being around with Bond, since her name now is on the Spectre hit list.
Mm-hmm. That would have actually been interesting to follow, how it would turn out. Yeah, there's actually stakes here, in a way.
Yeah, of course, all that being said, I never actually understood why Spectre now want to kill Lucia. Like, I get that from the film's point of view, the driving motive would be that Spectre is closing off the loose ends now that it no longer has its lieutenant, and they want to keep Lucia from, going to the officials and spilling the beans. But at the same time, Lucia acts like she already knows that now that her husband is dead, Spectre is going to send a hit team after her, which, like, logic would say that would just make you more eager to go to authorities and look for protection. So from Spectre's point of view, which is supposed to be some kind of a mastermind organization, I would make the argument that it would have been easier for them and much less risky to, simply throw couple of $1 million at Lucia's direction and buy her a mansion at some distant location and be like, don't worry about anything, we cover all the expenses as long as you keep your mouth shut and don't go to the authorities about our existence.
Maybe, but I think the film is making the case that the organization hasn't trusted Lucia from the get-go, and the only one who was in between Spectre and her was her husband. And now that he's gone, she's going to be taken out of the way just as a precaution.
Yeah, well, could be.
Monica Bellucci actually auditioned for the role that went to Terry Hatcher in Tomorrow Never Dies, this very unfortunate movie where, well, this was actually one of the better parts of the film, where Terry Hatcher would play the old love interest of James Bond. And then just one day, Terry Hatcher's character left James Bond because of James Bond's lifestyle, which is, quote, murder on relationships, as it is. And yeah, Monica Bellucci was supposed to pull that role off, but instead the producers, for whatever reason, then went to Terry Hatcher. And Brosnan had a lot of issues apparently with Terry Hatcher during this film. Probably a lot of this is thrown out of the proportion in the media, but Brosnan said about Terry Hatcher that she was not on schedule at the shooting locations, and this behavior started to irritate him. Later it was, though, brought into attention that Terry Hatcher had also had some kind of a morning sickness, and she was pregnant, so this might have contributed, but Brosnan said some not very nice things towards Terry Hatcher during the shooting. And also, he had nothing very good to say about the producers after, at least when he left the James Bond franchise. I'm not sure, but it was pretty bad what he said about the producers, like about making the decision to go with Terry Hatcher. Of course, this is a very artistic scene. There's opera singing for the background, which suits this well. But when we have this shot where Monica Bellucci is on the foreground, expecting to get killed by the pool or what have you outside there. So Bond is kept out of focus when he shoots the baddies, and then he comes to frame, pretty much to the same level as the widow, Lucia. So the limited depth of field is here still for no particularly good reason, except for the fact that it's one take. But you see Lucia on the left side, and she's completely on focus. And then on the right side, what you feel like is Daniel Craig just opposite of her, not in focus. And I think this doesn't work too well. Of course, later they focus on Craig and then back to Bellucci, and they have to do this thing. This depth of field effect could have been done digitally to avoid this problem, but it is what it is.
A bigger problem than the depth of field here is kind of the ongoing chemistry, and more notably the aggression between Bond and Lucia, which actually gives the love scene kind of a rapey vibe.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about it here too much. Of course, Bond was once again pushing his own self-interests there, which is really clear. But I think...
Well, there is the whole Lucia is seething with anger and being afraid in the situation, since Bond has just, to quote her, signed her death warrant. And then there's Bond throwing around the champagne glasses and then just, slowly pushing Lucia against the mirror and... like, yikes!
What do you think more about this weird replies from James Bond into situations like this? Like, sounds like fun, I might drop by. I think it's funny, it's a stupidity, but kind of lacking punch again in some way.
It does, and what it also sounds like is that Bond doesn't realize how dangerous the situation could be.
Yeah.
Like saying things like sounds like fun, I might drop by. I would see that more in, for example, Pierce Brosnan's films, which are not so heavy. Like where there's less weight in the word of the films. They are more adventurous, they are more casual, they are more fun, more energetic. And I could see that in that universe, Bond could really hear about a bad guy, evil meeting thing, and just, decide that carelessness to the wind. I just, try to sneak into this meeting by going through the front door. But it doesn't really resonate with Daniel Craig's universe, which is supposed to be this every bullet can kill, every hit can kill, you are in constant danger type of world.
I found something shocking from Brosnan that he said about the one-liners, quote, "It never felt real to me. I never felt I had complete ownership over Bond, because you'd have these stupid one-liners, which I loathed, and I always felt phony doing them. I'd look at myself in the suit and tie and think, what the heck am I doing here?" Yeah, that's the end of the quote. Really surprising to me. I thought he always enjoyed doing the shtick that he was doing.
I can kind of understand that he didn't like it, because as his run went on, the films or the Bond's dialogue, Pierce Brosnan's Bond's dialogue just turned into nothing except, one-liner after one-liner and goofy punch after goofy punch.
Yeah, if your last movie, like it was Die Another Day, that can leave a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth about the dialogue. Once again, it's probably not intentional, but when Bond leaves Bellucci, it reminds me of Brosnan's Bond leaving Rosamund Pike character alone in this swan bed in Die Another Day, even though the angles are not exactly the same, but yeah. So off we go. There will be this meeting in Palazzo Cardenza at midnight to find a replacement for Christoph Waltz, Sciarra. Bond talks a little bit of Italian, as we noted in the beginning of the episode. And there's also all these different elements that are, once again, explained about the Spectre organization. They control drug markets prices, and they're trying to control different things to their advantage around the world. There's the feedback from the microphone, and Oberhauser arrives into the room. This scene does not work visually, because when he arrives, Oberhauser is shown always constantly from above, from being below everyone's eye level. So this makes him seem not menacing at all. Like it's more like a sweet uncle, just like he actually plays the character, god damn it, apart from doing the violent deeds, like with the drill at the end. Jesus. And this is one of the scenes that gets the biggest respects. One of the biggest respect is coming from the cinematography of the scene. There's nothing wrong with the cinematography per se, but there is the problem that I think that Bond is above this bad guy, and I just don't feel the dynamic working. You're trying to introduce somebody who is the biggest antagonist James Bond has ever faced, and I just don't feel it.
I kind of did get it precisely cinematography-wise. Like, on this situation, it kind of makes sense that Bond would still be on top of Blofeld, since Bond is not yet aware of who Blofeld is, and therefore can easily see that, or believe that Blofeld is nothing more than just, once again, one bad guy leader who he already has killed two of. So on that regard, I can kind of see where the cinematography and where kind of Bond's position in this moment still would come from.
It's like a menacing introduction. It's good play with the shadows. It's just maybe it's all about the portrayal of Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, Christoph Waltz does not work, in my opinion. I kind of feel that what he's trying to do is some kind of a toned down Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds here.
Yeah. I got kind of the same feeling that he would be trying to do, looking very harmless, but then doing something unexpectedly horrible in a way.
And I get it. I can understand why you would try to go with that kind of a presentation. Why that could be the role, the type of role that you try to give. But I don't feel it working in Spectre. I would actually go as far as to say that Christoph Waltz's portrayal of Blofeld actually ends up undermining the character.
Absolutely. There's no menace physically, and I think the Inglorious Bastards way of approaching the character just doesn't work. And then him also trying to be comical in this menacing way, like cuckoo. That's how the scene ends, goddammit, with cuckoo. I mean, we later get the reference that the cuckoo it's a reference to a bird anecdote that he will do later. But it just makes him look like an idiot, or makes him look like something out of Austin Powers.
And part of why it might not work is the fact that when it comes to Blofeld in Spectre, he doesn't really do anything that horrific. Like the dynamic that Waltz is trying to play is, like you mentioned, harmless on the surface and then does a horrible act. That's very much what also Landa was in Inglourious Basterds.
Mm-hmm.
But where Landa got repeated moments of horrific actions, and some of his actions were really horrific in that film, in Spectre, what does Blofeld do that is really that horrific? The only thing that comes to my mind is the drill torture scene, which, to be honest, is not really brutal, doesn't really look that horrific. The characters say that it is, and Daniel Craig does scream like he's in a lot of pain, but you're not shown anything horrific visually wise. And even during that torture, all that Blofeld is doing is sitting on front of a computer and pushing a button.
Yeah. There is like zero physical contact between these guys, right?
Yeah, it's not like in Inglourious Basterds, where Landa comes into the farmer's home and casually, drinks milk while he's psychologically tearing the guy apart, or taking him down, seeing, kind of judging the situation, and then orders a goddamn execution company to come in and shoot a family that is hiding under the floorboards.
Yep.
That's a horrific action. That's a brutal conflict where Landa actually plays a major role. And in that it works. In there it works to have a really social, kind of a harmless, happy character, and then show you that he orders a group of men to execute a family. But it doesn't work when the most drastic thing that your character does is push on a button and basically just say to the audience that, yeah, this is going to hurt.
Yeah. This is followed by this chase scene that lasts forever. Or I'm not even sure if it's a chase scene or whatever it is. Whatever, though, we have as far as the statistics go is that 7 Aston Martins in total were destroyed during the filming. That alone cost $48 million. $48 million, and the budget was what, like $250 million, more or less. Seriously, that's crazy. That's a huge part of the budget. And
yeah, and you kind of spend it on one action set piece that isn't even that exciting, to be honest.
It's not. It doesn't have any fucking focus here. We have 2 cars. I get it. But then we have a phone call to Moneypenny. So it's dragging the audience attention from this chase that is supposed to be our focus to a phone call about the sexual relationships of Moneypenny. What are you doing, movie?
Yeah.
And then you have one guy, or one old guy, you do this old shtick that the old guy who is, well, in this case, listening to music and is completely clueless of what is happening, and he's been in this vehicle that is very slow, so he's being pushed by onto somewhere, but there's nothing original about that. We've seen it so many times that it's not even funny in any level.
Yeah, and the tone kind of just keeps shifting. Like the chase starts from the Spectre secret mansion, where you actually see a brutal murder of one of the Spectre lieutenants. Then, and from there you end up to the cars. The chase proper starts. So you are still in this this is a really dangerous situation. You just saw a horrible murder, and then it all of a sudden it jumps into jokes in the middle of the chase.
Yes.
And then from the jokes, it once again it tries to get back into, the excitement and the tension, and this is still the chase that started with horrible murder. And it's like,
And at which point you have kind of already forgotten that there's also a change going on here.
yeah.
And it's funny looking at they spend a lot of time just following these cars on the streets of Rome, and nothing is happening in those shots. Like absolutely fucking nothing. They don't basically serve any purpose. They show the cars are driving, great, and then they go the steps down next to this river, and the chase continues. We have some kind of close-ups of the cars, but as soon as they get next to the river, then again we pull back. We pull back into this kind of establishing shot level shot of the cars, and we see them going by there. Yeah, okay. Who gives a shit? Why are you not intensifying the editing and the shots? You're just pulling away, and then you're coming back, and at the end, nothing happens here. Bond actually goes to the lengths of using the ejector seat to launch him off this chase scene that he considers to be so boring that he doesn't want to continue it, so he just ends it there.
Yeah. The entire chase in the end ends up being completely pointless.
Right.
And talking about completely pointless, can you tell me exactly what the fuck happened in the Spectre meeting? Because I've never been able to piece it together.
Okay.
Why does Dave Bautista all of a sudden walk into a room and gouge a man's fucking eyes out?
Yeah.
Is it like they had an open position. They ask who wants to take this job. Then only fucking one guy says, I will do the job. Nobody opposes that. Everybody's fine with that. And then Bautista just walks into the room and murders the guy. Like, the fuck? Is that like, Spectre version of job interview? Like, if you don't die, you get the job. Or is that the reason why every single Bond villain always has a funny quirk? Like, did Dr. No get his position because he didn't die when his fucking hands got chopped off?
Yeah, this is really not communicated well to the audience. But what happens there is that I think is that this guy who says that no more amateurs, no more mistakes in Italian, he is supposed to take over. But I took that because he says that no more amateurs, no more mistakes. He might be in some way connected to the mistakes that developed this whole Sciarra problem. And now, because there's somebody better or somebody who is not involved with the Sciarra conflict, he's there to gouge the guy's eyes out so he can replace him because, well, he's better anyway. Or maybe they planned it out way before the meeting started, so it's just for the show.
Yeah, because Bautista does not inherit the dude's position. He simply, stays as Blofeld's henchman.
Okay.
Dumb muscle and nothing else. He doesn't become any kind of a lieutenant in the organization.
Well, I took it that he replaced Sciarra, but if not, then it doesn't.
I don't see him. Like the film doesn't show you him doing any kind of a leadership things.
Because I took that it's kind of exposing his CV, it's his credentials when he kills the guy. I can take this job.
Okay, that could be, but once again, I never saw that in film because Bautista never does anything with the role. The next time you see him is when he's punching. Is when he's kidnapping Swan from the clinic. And that's a henchman job. And then he's punching Bond's stupid face in the drain. That's a henchman job. But a la odd job.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like, if Bautista kind of took the job, murdered the dude and got his job, in that case I would say that the film should have shown you a moment where Bautista is just, sitting behind a table, being on a phone, giving orders, and not on the goddamn field, doing grunt work.
Yeah, I see this character as problematic because they're trying to do the odd job thing again, and it's so obvious. Secondly, which is what is a problem here, is that we are communicated that they're supposed to have some kind of a funny connection. They keep sharing these smiles to each other, and they're supposed to be. To me, that tells that they are supposed to have some previous connection, or they shared some funny moment, like Roger Moore's James Bond shared a lot of funny moments with Jaws, so it's understandable that they would share some smiles and have this playful manner of trying to kill each other. But with Bautista, nothing has been developed.
Yeah, once again, it comes to the universes of all the Bond actors. Roger Moore's universe, where he is Bond operated, it once again was kind of a fantastical, easygoing, nothing is so serious type of universe. It kind of made sense that there you could have a knowing smirk between the enemy who tries to kill you. But once again, Daniel Craig's universe is supposed to be super dangerous, super violent, where a man's eyes get gouged out of his goddamn head for no apparent reason. Like, this is supposed to be cruel, violent, and nihilistic world. So, eh?
Yeah, indeed. The ejector seat escape was apparently a plot idea from the third Dalton movie, which of course never happened. The Aston would feature in an action scene where Bond goes over a cliff but parachutes to safety by using the Martin's ejector seat. And there's a lot of small things that have been kind of put into different films when they were not used in the original script throughout the franchise. But the colorization of the film, woo-ha! So no tight curves anywhere. It's always very gray, kind of blurry because it doesn't have definition, and therefore I feel it's kind of unstriking. It's trying to do some kind of a Dark Knight thing again, or at least be dark. But what it does essentially is just gray, faded tones of some high school yearbook almost, urine yellow colors. Really, this is not a joy to watch.
No, and it once again, like, at this point you all almost start to sound like a broken record, but it once again, it kind of reeks of laziness.
Yeah.
Like, let's look back at previous Bond films. How did those films do glamour? And let's take Lutz from there. Let's take the cinematography from there. Let's take the establishing shot from there.
But then, not really, because this is a weird color scheme. I don't remember anything like this. You look at the Brosnan run, you have clear colors. And this is trying to do something Marvel-esque, I guess.
Yeah, Marvel-esque is what I would say. Dark Knight, Inception type of thing. This might be some kind of a leftover from the times when Nolan was supposed to direct the film.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be that may have instigated an image into some Mendes's head or something like that. But the coloring of the movie doesn't, to me, it does not look like anybody gave any real thought. Like, how am I going to color this film? This doesn't look like the case where the dude in charge of the coloring of the movie spent like weeks or even days thinking like what color scheme fits this film.
Yeah. Anyways, Nine Eyes Gathering. We need more. Much more. I'm not going to continue with that. But that's how the scene starts. And more data, more analysis, less likelihood of a terrorist attack is the proposition. So we're still going with the post-Skyfall, post-Snowden data breach plotlines once again. As stated, Tanner sees the article Street Race ends with a splash, and now Bond's cover is blown. $3 million prototype in the river. That's good job. So the motion is not passed yet because South Africa repels it. Q lies about the location of Bond, that he would be in Chelsea or London, but he's actually in Aldersee, Austria. And we get to the Austria hut with return of Mr. White, who we know from Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. This is some kind of a fan favorite moment, as I understand. I don't know. It's one of the best scenes in the film. Still, he was supposed to be killed actually in Quantum of Solace, but those scenes were cut off and have never been seen. And it's the only bad guy that appears in 3 movies in the franchise. Thallium poisoning in the cell phone. Somehow Mr. White grew a conscience. He disobeyed Mr. Oberhauser and followed him as far as he could, but then Oberhauser changed. He mentions women, children. Yeah, I suppose he's referring to those random bombings around the world. So, I don't know what to think about it. Mr. White was still doing pretty creepy deeds. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, he was still helping like Ugandan militias and
Yeah.
God knows what revolutionaries. I'm kind of I'm going off with a hunch here, but I would guess that those guys either weren't too concerned about the women and children.
Right. Somehow Bond learns that he's protecting his daughter, and now Bond shall protect the daughter. And something interesting that we will get later on when we see the tape of this situation. I'm making the statement that Bond wasn't planning on giving him the gun to make him shoot himself. It was just like a guarantee that, hey, you have an opportunity to shoot me. So this is the kind of a guarantee that I will give to you in ways of protecting your daughter.
And I would also, to me, that also is how the scene reads.
Yeah.
And I would say that the film also agrees with that reading. Seeing how Mr. White reacts when he first picks the gun. He points it at Bond and Bond doesn't even flinch. So it wasn't any kind of a, assassination situation. It wasn't Bond trying to force Mr. White to kill himself.
Yeah.
And, coming back to this point later on in the film, when the recordings are being shown, I can't really see how the fuck Swan could have read it that way.
It's
like they present the recordings as it's somehow supposed to be condemning evidence against Bond, which Swan shouldn't see.
That's how I read it, and I could never crack, like, why movie are you doing this? Or what are you trying to tell me? Once again, there's many situations throughout this movie where I don't understand what the movie wants to tell to me. And here it's either that Madeleine Swan is now blaming James Bond kind of for the death of his father, but that really doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Right. And because it doesn't make sense, then it makes James Bond's reaction to the tape really confusing as well, because he's like, no, turn it off. When did James Bond ever why did Bond get so emotional about this tape? He has never been particularly emotional when it comes to death. That's kind of his MO, his job, to not have any feelings. You can read it in a way that he's trying to protect Swan from not watching the tape, but also for me that doesn't really match with the level of intensity that he comes towards Oberhauser. Please don't show this tape.
Yeah, I'm guessing that what it's supposed to do is once again tied back to the Sam Smith, how do I live, how do I breathe, romance thing between Swan and Bond. Like, Bond is trying to protect Swan's feelings towards him, so he doesn't want Swan seeing the tape, because then Swan would no longer love Bond.
Right.
And on top of that, the fucking video recordings of Mr. White's death, once again, I maintain, in no way actually would give the impression that Bond is at fault for Mr. White's death.
Yeah.
I would say anything you can see on the recording, unless it's heavily edited. Like, I would say sci-fi levels of video editing. Everything on the tape would show you that Mr. White simply committed a suicide and it's not Bond's fault.
When it comes to the character of Madeleine Swan, the only way that I think you can fix some of the shortcomings in the supposed love story of Spectre in No Time to Die is to go full on ahead into the direction of betrayal of Madeleine Swan. As the trailer kind of suggests, there is this dialogue piece. Why would I betray you? And Bond replies, we all have our secrets. We just didn't get to yours yet. So you could go with that Madeleine Swan was just one puzzle in the entire Spectre plot in some way. Because that's the better way to go about it than James Bond being head over heels in love with the character, because it doesn't work.
It most definitely doesn't.
Yeah. One of the best quotes of the entire film is in this scene, which is kind of weird, but I think it's completely original to the script. This quote, "You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond." I quite like that.
And the film also quite like that, seeing how the notion kind of gets repeated.
Yeah? It's in the trailer, you mean, or?
It's in the trailer. It's also, if I remember correctly, in some fan posters or maybe even in legit posters of the film.
Yeah, many people like that. So M is explaining his concerns about C. This, which we already discussed, has Max ever needed to kill? A license to kill is also a license not to kill. And then Max one-ups M with the surveillance because he has a tape recording of a cell phone call between Moneypenny and Bond. Batista, or Hinks as he's known, visits Mr. White and somehow finds the security camera still on the wall, running, and for some reason Bond was too stupid apparently to destroy the footage before he left the hut, or he was in too much of a hurry all of a sudden, leaving clues for no reason really. But hey, Dr. Madeline Swan is now introduced, even though we have been talking a lot about Swan already. So Bond arrives to the clinic. Swan, of course, doesn't believe that Bond would be there to protect him, which is completely natural since Bond has already set up the entire premise to Swan in a way that she would believe he's there to kill her. Like, quote, "Humor me, how does one train at Oxford and then Sorbonne, become a consultant, spend 2 years with Médecins Sans Frontières and end up here?" And it's like confronting this character, being quite aggressive with words. Of course, she thinks that he's going to hurt her. I would think so. But Q comes to say hi to Bond. Interesting character moment for Bond. Q is telling kind of snarkily why he's there and what has happened, and Bond is like, "Get to the point." I've never seen Daniel Craig's Bond so visibly irritated in a conversation like this before. Pretty good Daniel Craig Bond moment there as the action starts rolling. He's punching the guards and then says to one of them, "No, stay." Somehow magically, Bond gets the plane, Britain Norman Islander plane, from out of nowhere. There was apparently an airfield nearby. There's this Roger Moore winky wink from the plane to Bautista's direction. Once again, Bond doesn't struggle, especially in this scene. It's just this destroying the plane in a live and let die way where the flings fly off this plane. There's also this On Her Majesty's vibes all over it. The wintry cable car. And the trailer even had a portion of rescored On Her Majesty's music. And there's many On Her Majesty's references and parallels. Moreover, I think Bond could have easily killed Swan with his adolescent antics, like she's shooting the car and damaging another while he's descending with the plane and crashing onto one car and it explodes to pieces.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see what is Bond's rationale here. Like, what is he actually trying to do and how and why?
Right, and why is he doing this? Because he could just as well just follow these bad guys and see him being taken to the baddies' base of operations, just like that.
Precisely. Or if he would, want to intercept the hijacking of Swan, he could have, save all the plane stunts into the open area and try to use plane there instead of, flying it down in the middle of a goddamn forest road.
Yeah, there's the scene where Bond goes through a wooden shack with the vehicle. This just reminds me of For Your Eyes Only when the motorcycles are going through the shack. I don't know, this feels like a reference to me. And then Madeleine Swan's reaction is completely something that Natalia Fyodorovna Simonova would have done in GoldenEye. Like, she kicks Bond in the foot and says, "Let go of me," or something. And here it's, "Don't touch me."
But more than Bond's antics, it's the Q's antics that I most definitely can't stand.
Which antics are those?
And this is the point where the film where I finally got the message that the film is beyond salvation. That you can't salvage this work. It's Q and his goddamn fucking magic scanner, which he brought brought with him to Austria, which, like, if you haven't seen the film, the way how this scene plays out, and I wish I would be kidding, is that, like mentioned, in the opening of the film, Bond steals the ring from Sciarra and somehow realizes that it's very important, so he carries it in his pocket throughout the film. Now he hands it to Q, and Q has with him his laptop and a scanner. Places the ring on the scanner, and the scanner scans the DNA trace of every single person ever who has touched the ring, and somehow deciphers that from the DNA, deciphers the person's identity, even though Spectre is supposed to be super secret organization where you don't know who its members are. And mysteriously, the only people who have touched the ring are the Spectre lieutenants and Blofeld himself. And then it also creates a diagram of the entire top Spectre organization against an octopus-shaped background. And when I say diagram, I precisely mean that. Like the top dog is Oppenheimer. There's a mugshot of him as a kid. And then line goes down, it gets divided into Spectre lieutenants. And most likely would go even down from there, showing the underlings of each lieutenant. And that's how MI6 finds out and gets the solid evidence that Spectre exists in this film, where MI6 is supposed to be stuck on a technological dark age.
Right. So DNA, I completely missed that part, that it's actually reading the DNA. I thought it was just reading the ring and making connections to the ring in the database. But like you, I really, really don't like this when these computer interfaces are too visually pleasing but not really usable in any way. And you're supposed to believe that this is usable.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's the laziest, it's most ham-fisted way ever how MI6 could come to realize that Spectre really does exist, and this is not just some kind of a Bond's paranoid fantasy theory.
Yeah, the one ring that rules them all, including green. Now, green is shown on the computer monitor as well when Q and Swan meet in this, is it a hotel room?
Yeah, shown air quotation marks.
The only part where he's shown.
The only part, and even here he's shown in real quick fashion, like blink and you miss it, and he's hidden into the right side of the screen, so back to the right side of the screen that most likely the audience's viewpoint is fixed on the middle of the image, meaning that the a bit blurred, hidden on the right side picture of Green's face is something that's really easy to miss here.
Yeah. If you watch the trailer for the film, in the trailer Q asks, quote, "Do you know who links them all?" And Bond replies, "Me." But in the final movie, however, Bond replies, "him," referring to Oberhauser. Interesting change. It makes way more sense, of course. Well, Bond is linked to them, but I think it's better to not draw so much attention to James Bond and how he's linked to every goddamn thing. Spectre is terrorizing Cape Town now so that he can get his intelligence imperium working. And L'Américain, they learn, it's not a person, but it's a place. And the only link to Oberhauser. So they go to L'Américain, which is a hotel in Tangier, Morocco. Swan is just in this scene as well, so cold and dull and disconnected from Bond. And kind of in her own world. Of course, Daddy was just killed and all. It's hard to believe that they got her back to No Time to Die, but that happened. I can't believe she would want to return as an actor.
I wouldn't if I would be on her shoes. Then again, I don't know how many millions was involved.
Right, but also considering the fan reaction to this, it was really mixed. Like, oh, wow, Swan, really? Again? It didn't work the first time around. James Bond goes to Morocco and Tangier again. Okay, I guess I'm going to go easy on that. I think he has only been in Tangier in The Living Daylights. Moment with the mouse. Who sent you? Who are you working for? I don't know. Maybe not that funny, or maybe not meant to be.
No, it kind of makes Bond look like he's unhinged.
Yeah, but this is the clue where conveniently now they find the secret room inside the hotel.
Yeah, which for some odd reason either has been completely okay with the hotel, or then the hotel has never noticed that one of its rooms has mysteriously gotten smaller because Mr. White has built an extra wall to hide his secret room.
Mm-hmm. Lots of clack, 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 clank, and rrrr, all these sounds, repairing and putting the fake wall in there and then leaving for 1 year and coming back later.
Yep. And nobody notices.
Nobody notices. Maybe it was a deal with the hotel. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, nobody explains, nobody tells you shit.
And this is the place and time in the film where we don't really know anymore where the film wants to go from here, where to take itself, where we get to know that it's the room, but there's not like this natural continuing intrigue anymore, at least after this point, from scene to scene, as perhaps there is in Skyfall. It just doesn't carry very well on from scene to scene.
No, it becomes a kind of it becomes a combination of locations. Like from here, Bond and Swan, they get on to a train. They are on train, then on the middle of train trip they decide to get off the train. A car comes and picks them up and drives them to Blofeld secret hideout base.
Mm-hmm.
Like that the film stops communicating to its audiences how the characters know what to do and why they do what they do. How does Bond know that this is the spot where we have to get off the train in the middle of a fucking desert? And why does Blofeld send his chauffeur to go and pick Bond and Swan?
And why does the train stop there? Was it especially arranged? And why are they sitting there at the train stop or whatever this hut is, doing nothing? Are they expecting their little Uber car or what?
Yeah. Like none of this is actually, told to you. In no way. The film never actually explains any of this. It just becomes like, no, they are here, now they are here, now they are here.
Yeah.
Scene exchange.
Country hopping, just going to Tangier, Morocco like that, and then it's just one convenient vehicle or movement after another.
Yeah, I mean that the fucking film, even the third act starts this way. Bond explodes the watch on Blofeld's face. And by all logic, you would think that would have killed Blofeld. So you would believe that Bond now believes that Blofeld is dead.
Mm-hmm.
A bomb just went off. So then Bond just remarks, it's not over yet. And knows to go back to London, where Blofeld has retreated.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason.
Also, this ham-fisted way of getting Swan on the train in the first place. Like, she wants to understand what happened to his father, I get it, but really, so much so that she's ready to die for it. For this guy who was so horrible throughout her life, and she doesn't want to do anything with this organization. I don't buy it.
Yeah, this would have been, like I said before, this is the situation where Lucia would have worked better as a character. Like, Lucia could have still stuck with Bond for protection, but Swan would have actually been more safe if she would not follow Bond. Like, any distance that she can put up between her and Bond is actually good for her.
In 72 hours, she will get control of the intelligence databases, so they need to hurry up a bit. In the train, Bond is trying to give like this arms training for Swan, but apparently she doesn't need any. She just happens to hate the guns. This is a SIG 226. And there's this whole backstory that she once killed someone who came to kill his father. And later, of course, in the story, Oberhauser explains that he once came to their flat to see her father. And Swan replies that she doesn't remember that, but he does. So is this
Yeah,
reference to this particular moment or not? Apparently not,
I don't
because
know.
yeah, I think they are not connected in any way, so it's kind of left just hanging there.
Yeah, because once again, if it was Blofeld, then it does makes no sense that Swan hates guns.
Yeah,
You didn't kill anyone. You ain't traumatized.
I suppose, unless she killed that
Yeah,
person.
if she killed that person, in that case, it wasn't Blofeld who tried to kill
Exactly.
Swan's father. Like,
So Q and Moneypenny interrupt M's evening. Q now willing to share Bond's location and delete all the smart blood files as instructed, and train drinks. Connery dinner jacket from Goldfinger, of course, is brought into this scene, and somehow, just this Leia Seydoux portrayal of this character, everything is kind of lackluster after Eva Green, but I see just manufactured chemistry and trying to create something that was with Eva Green, but so weakly that no way it's working on any level. They're having an aperitif, an alcoholic beverage, and a vodka martini dirty, and somehow this vodka martini dirty is very funny for Swan, and they're now artificially building this kind of a bonding in the train, which is forcing this relationship to grow between them. I don't know what's funny about vodka martini the dirty. Is it the dirty that is funny, ha ha ha, or is it that they
I'm
are?
guessing that's supposed to be it.
Uh, oh my God! I please no. And then Swan asks about what would happen if Bond would quit his job. So once again, these evergreen kind of things going on. Or on Her Majesty's vibes, where James Bond says that he will quit his job and I love you so much, baby. That kind of thing. And the drinks arrive. Bond says, "Could you leave them there, please?" I don't know if this is some kind of etiquette thing to say in some moments, but was this a necessary line once again? Maybe he wanted to specify a place, like, "Could you leave the drinks under my table, please?" Of course he's going to leave them on the table. Anyway, handheld camera scene, the camera is a little bit off axis. Train fight ensues with Hinks, and what can I say? I actually enjoyed the physicality of this fight. It's one of my favorite parts of the troubled film because, yeah, he's a very physical character, Hinks, and a serious, like a physical threat, and he moves very quick for being a very big character. I kind of dig that.
At least, it is the best fight
Yeah.
of the film. And at least here you get the sense that there are some stakes in this fight.
But then again, we are in a train, and the James Bond franchise is notorious for goddamn trains. We have been in trains in so many movies. I mean, yeah, it's a normal mode of transportation, but come on, we have had already a fight in train in Live and Let Die, where the guy is thrown out of the window. We have The Spy Who Loved Me quite after that, where Jaws is thrown out of the window of the train, and now we're throwing Hinks out of the train. And
Yeah, and we were fighting in trains already in Sean Connery era. Like,
oh yes, we did
from
Russia with
Russia
Love.
is famous for having a fight in a train.
Yes, you're right. And From Russia with Love is also famous for creating this audio landscape where when the fight is going on, the noise from the train heightens, and that's what it does here as well. You hear nothing but the train noise, which you didn't hear at all during the drinks. So that's kind of what they're kind of looking for mood-wise.
Yeah.
But then you have this one dialogue piece from Bautista, and it's shit. Really, like really, that's it. Like that's the best you could come up with. Like this is probably what Jess Butterworth was polishing in these lines right here, right? This the teenager appealing language. In this, what he would target for teenagers. Seriously, it's really awkward for me. I couldn't stand it in the theater. I still can't stand it after 4 watches of this film.
Yeah, like I can't believe that this is how the film tries to distinguish Hinks from Oddjob. Both
Right.
are mute, brute force muscle henchmen, except it turns out that Hinks actually was able to talk.
Followed by, "What do we do now?" And of course, we have sexy time. Really?
Mm.
what do we do now? Well, definitely not penetration. I don't buy this situation at all, but it was kind of a funny transition, but the problem is that I don't see this happening for these characters.
Not the least.
Yeah, way too hasty. Car pickup, yeah. That is a Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith. Can you possibly know the year? But Bond does, 1948. These were produced from between 1946 to 1958, and the Silver Wraith was also seen in From Russia with Love, when Kerim Bey's son used to drive Bond and carry him around in Istanbul, once again planting something from the past. And the black guy is having the similar driver clothes. This could be seen as a reference to Dr. No because it's the same driver clothes. I guess driver clothes are pretty, or the chauffeur clothes are pretty universal, I don't know. But, geez. This is a long film, you know. Yeah. They arrive to the base, and there's also the line in the car, "I'm scared, James." I get this Dr. No vibes from this, because Honey Rider says that in the elevator. Me too. My hands are sweaty too. All that jazz.
Yeah, something that most definitely gives you Dr. No vibes is goddamn Blofeld himself.
Yeah. But there's also this friendly invite for dinner and drinks at 4, just like in Dr. No. Like, we give you these nice hotel rooms and the servants are all smiles. And here you are. And the dinner is at whatever time. And splendid, we'll be joining. And here Bond says also, tell him we won't be late. Wonderful. Okay. And they have their very own clean rooms and Dr. No is all over this. Pictures from the past have been delivered to these hotel rooms. What is this? Like, what is this? So, Batista is in the train, ready to kill James Bond. Now, does Dr. No, I mean Oberhauser, know that Batista is there out to kill them? Or is it planned in such a way that if Batista happens to fail this particular mission in the train, then Dr. No will go like through all of these hotel rooms and put these personal reference photographs there to intimidate them?
I'm guessing that Batista is just, a rogue operative who belongs to Blofeld's organization, but Blofeld never actually knows what the hell Batista is doing. Like, that would also explain the Spectre secret meeting thing earlier. Like Blofeld is there quite ready to, give the job to that one dude. He's just sitting there on his end of the table and just being like, yeah, fine, you have the job. And all of a sudden, random Batista just walks into the room, murders the guy, and Blofeld is just, numb stuck there. Like shit, that just happened. And then he makes the whole clever plan of having Bond come to his hideout so that he can show his evil plan and the recordings and all that shit. And then he just, happens to hear that, oh shit, yeah, Bautista also appeared on the train and tried to kill Bond. And once again, he's like, oh, well, fuck.
Yeah, you could actually make an argument that Hinks is completely unaffiliated with Spectre. He's just some random dude who appears there to ruin the plans.
Every now and then, when the situation does not call for him, a random Hinks appears and does something that nobody expected.
Definitely.
Maybe Hinks was an MI6 plant all along, and his plan was to actually just cause havoc inside Spectre, doing completely random things, like just murdering a random Spectre lieutenant for shits and giggles, because that would actually, harpen Spectre's ability to work as an organization, because now they just once again have to find a next lieutenant to take over from the previous guy who Hinks just killed.
Man, this explanation makes the film much more interesting to watch. Oh, okay, so there's more of this Dr. No babble. Like, champagne? Maybe later. This is like Bond has learned something from the drugged coffee in Dr. No, I take it. After which they go to the meteorite room, and Oberhauser seems to have ran out of electricity because there is not much light there available. Empty, echoey room with few points of impressive interest. Dr. No, Dr. No, Dr. No. And then this voice from the middle of the darkness, which is, touch it. You can touch it if you want. What? I'm pretty sure Bond didn't travel all this way to be joined in some Oberhauser darkroom party or something. Like, and what meteorite? Because this can't be some meteorite, really. He's making the reference that this is the meteorite that created the crater where they are now standing. Except it's impossible. So the villain's place is supposed to be a meteorite crater, and the piece of crater in the room, this is in actual fact something that they shot in an erosional crater, because a meteorite impact cannot create a crater with this kind of dimensions we found in the Flick Lab. The depth to diameter ratio in Oberhauser's lair is about 1 to 2, when in fact the meteor craters are about 1 to 5. Oberhauser continues about the Gartenhof meteorite, which would have been building it, but it cannot be this meteorite because the oldest meteorites on Earth are not looking like this as he proposes. Iron meteorites, like the one in the room, with some kind of, as they call, regmaclipped formations, these are not possible because these are some remnants from some old planet possibly, and the meteorite has melted and recrystallized along the way. The oldest meteorites that are available on Earth are so-called carbonaceous chondrites. So with
and like also begs the question, why the fuck would you build your super secret evil base in a meteorite crater of all the goddamn locations? Because logic once again would suggest that you would wanna hide your base into a location where nobody would ever come, so that nobody would ever see the base. And you would think that if there is a meteorite crater somewhere, some astronomers or other scientists might be extremely tempted to come around to see the crater and accidentally stumble upon your secret hideout.
Yeah, and I find this really not being up to par in any way with the bad guys' lairs of yesteryears. I mean, the building itself, I think the architecture is nothing that special. They're in a crater, well, whoopsie-doopsie-doo. I mean, we have been inside a freaking volcano in one film, You Only Live Twice. Kind of over the top, but at least it was hidden from sight, at least when it was finished.
We have had fucking laser battles in space stations.
Yeah, and what comes to mind from this base is more like Quantum of Solace base of greens in the middle of a desert, once again.
Kinda, yeah. And the base didn't actually make that much sense there either. Like in Quantum of Solace, it was supposed to be some kind of a luxury hotel for those who have way too much money and want some isolation where they are safe from prying eyes. That kind of I can still somewhat believe. Like if you would be super rich, super famous, maybe you would want to go in the middle of a desert to a luxury hotel for a week or two to make sure that nobody actually stumbles upon you and you are completely safe from paparazzis.
There was one film that I went to watch recently, and it was about drug cartels and stuff. Oh yeah, the Gentleman's, right? It's called in English. This latest from Guy Ritchie.
Okay.
And they're the baddies base, where they are developing all these drugs. It's kind of hidden. This whole laboratory is built underground of one crate that looks very innocent, like nothing is happening. It's just one crate that you enter, and maybe you have a computer desk there and computer. That's it. I like this kind of hidden places. Why can't they use this kind of a drug cartel influenced hidden bases? Maybe you have like a laundry company, and under that you have a huge base for your evil actions. Something like that. I don't think this has kind of happened in the entire Bond franchise.
Yeah, I would say the reason why they can't use that is because you can't have your weird, extremely choreographical Apple help desk death cult in a great hidden base. You need a creator base for all those fucking hipsters. Because that's precisely what you find from the observation room of Blofeld's base, where you have all the technicians in black clothes sitting in front of a computer, and then all of a sudden they all get up.
Yeah, that is weird. I was thinking that when the people at their desks here rise up, that this was some kind of a mark that maybe Blofeld has been drilling their heads as well and removed all of their memories, so they are nice little servants there. And they're
Well, could be. That's a possibility, which the film never voices out.
yeah, and
Like the whole scene is completely goddamn random.
not many things make sense at all. Then there is the quote, "He's a visionary like me," referring to C. Visionaries. Psychiatric wards are full of them, says Bond. Again, it's a Dr. No reference that they have at the table when Dr. No and Bond are having this little discussion.
Yeah, and apparently also No Time to Die is going to pull off similar type of situation.
Oh
At
yeah,
least going on by the trailers.
yeah. History isn't kind to men who play God.
Yeah. And it's once again, it's a similar type of situation. Bond is facing the main bad guy, I'm guessing, in a large ass room, which I'm guessing is in bad guy's secret base.
Yeah, and Bond is under ice like in Skyfall. I like this quote. "It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain." I actually forgot that I've been using this, the author of all your pain, in some previous episodes. I didn't remember that it was coming from this film, and apparently so. It's pretty cool.
I really hated it. I hated the entire plot point.
I hate the plot point.
I-
Yes, yes.
And I couldn't stand the quote either. I remember when I was seeing this in theaters and this moment came up, and at that point I was actually trying to choke myself with popcorn. Like I just kept stuffing it into my mouth and not even chewing it properly, just swallowing it, gulping some soda after it, so that the soda mixed with the popcorn got stuck in my throat.
And still you're praying there that please don't make any family connections with Bond and Blofeld, please.
Yeah. I don't know what actually was going on in my head at that moment, if anything. But I'm kind of coming to believe that that was some kind of a subconscious save yourself through death reaction to the stupidity of it all.
Oh, and this whole character of Blofeld, I don't understand this whole smirking thing. Smirking guy who doesn't seem to take his business very seriously. Just compare this Blofeld to, well, it's different world altogether, but compare this to Donald Pleasance's performance as Blofeld. Who is this weakling here? There isn't like iota of menace in Christoph Waltz Blofeld.
No, Christoph Waltz, like his location, his gadgets, his base, everything just keeps giving me Steve Jobs vibes for some odd reason. Maybe it's that this Blofeld is all about technology and sharing and stealing information and all these large white rooms where there is nothing in them. But I don't know. I just I just like when I said that Blofeld has an Apple help desk death cult. This is precisely the goddamn reason why I said it, because Apple and Steve Jobs are like the first things that comes to my mind
Wow.
when I see Waltz Blofeld.
I really didn't like this costume design either. This jacket is pretty weird.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this once again supposed to be some clothing that is supposed to hint back to Dr. No?
Mm-hmm. What is with this Doctor No references, or what is with these Diamonds Are Forever references? Because like Die Another Day did for some unknown reason, because of celebration.
Yes, this is kind of, this feels like a film that it wouldn't be good, but you would be more able to understand if this would have been the celebration film instead of Skyfall.
Yeah.
But this ain't. Like I'm not entirely sure. Is the situation that this got written before Skyfall? Like they first had this script and they just couldn't make the film work. And during the time that they were thinking, like, how can we salvage this? Somebody wrote Skyfall, which was a better script, so Sam Mendes agreed to direct that film. so they were stuck with this one. And when it came to time to make the next Bond film, nobody had written a new script, so it's then that they just once again dig up Spectre's script and choose that, well, this is the film we are going to make now.
That's one theory of many. Bond says nothing can be as painful as listening to you talk. Kind of this masculinity show off, kind of like in the Le Chiffre ball tickling interrogation. But then it goes to the grinding, and, well, Oberhauser now has explained that Oberhauser's father adopted Bond and taught him to ski, climb, and hunt. And what this essentially seems to communicate to the audience is that Oberhauser is now jealous of the connection that the two, his father and Bond, have shared in the past. Like, what?
Well, that's what it is.
But
that's the entire case, and the film never actually makes it so that Oberhauser's father would have loved Bond more than him. It's just that his dad showed affection towards Bond also. So the entire thing, the Blofeld's entire motivation for creating an overpowerful global terror network that can control nations, topple governments, and at whim is behind Bond's entire life. The motivation behind all of that is just the fact that Daddy-O showed affection also to Bond.
Yeah. He makes the reference that it's like a kind of a cuckoo's nest, right? Where you're just supposed to push the foreign intruder out of the nest, because that's what you do. So that's kind of also giving the indication that Oberhauser is doing it just because. And so no particular, tension would be going on between the characters, which would make sense in the way that, Oberhauser has been doing his thing throughout Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and so he has been just letting James Bond to do his business. Why didn't they have like their meeting earlier if he was so interested in doing his revenge on Bond? Yeah, just because. But that doesn't also make any sense if he's just doing it just because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or in the wrong place, quite simply. Because then this continues to the MI6 building, and Oberhauser is still playing these personal games. He's going to the shooting range and putting all these little A4 papers and putting the faces of all the loved ones from his life, or the villains from his life, the people that affected him in some way, trying to fuck up with James Bond's head. Why to go through all that trouble then if you are not having some kind of a vengeance in mind?
Yeah.
But
this is the lamest Blofeld that we have had in this entire series.
Most definitely. And this relationship is of no consequence to Bond himself. Like, Bond doesn't scream out in his expressions that there would be any familiarity towards this guy, no any shared stories, no nothing between them. He doesn't somehow then remember the guy at all, or he was just so no consequence, just like he is as a character in this film, that he just doesn't remember somebody was so unremarkable. Sorry, Christoph Waltz, but really.
Yeah, I kind of took like credit that Bond actually does remember him, and he does recognize Blofeld in the Spectre meeting when Blofeld first shows his stupid face, but Bond just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, and then Swan walks to Bond after some drilling moments and says, "I love you." Wow, really?
Yeah.
Really? And I kind of hate this scene altogether. Why to drill into Bond's head? Now Bond has 2 holes in his head for the rest of the franchise forever. So thanks for this movie.
Yeah, well, yeah. Holes that actually don't mean or do anything.
Apparently.
Once again, Blofeld talks a good game. He says to you that those holes may mean that Bond forgets everything, or that he loses his motionality. He can't move and walk and talk and do anything. If he would just, drill into the right place.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't.
But he doesn't. Really. I mean, after Bond escapes, it's barely an inconvenience to him what went through. He runs, guns, yells, shoots, does anything that he has done previously.
Yeah.
So the entire torture had no effect.
Yeah, no stakes, no consequences. And then Bond goes on his little shooting range. It's starting to look like a video game.
It does. This is one of the easiest escapes that Bond has had in the franchise. Not the easiest. There has been some more notorious ones, like when Live and Let Die, they were supposed to feed Bond to was it Barracudas? And Bond just uses the watch and, cuts through the handcuffs. It's not entirely that bad. But this is the escape from Blofeld's base is piece easy to Bond.
And of course, this is the moment how Blofeld gets the famous scars, and you just have to emulate it from the earlier movies.
Yeah, of course, because it's not Blofeld without the scar.
I think he was doing pretty fine without scars on Her Majesty's, and...
Then again, when it comes to Blofeld in Spectre, the scar really is the only thing Blofeld in Blofeld.
And we get the biggest explosion ever. Or it was the explosion that was filmed in Morocco here that holds the Guinness World Record for the largest film stunt explosion in cinematic history. They used 8,000 plus liters of kerosene and 24 charges, each with a kilogram of high explosives. Boom, 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 boom.
And that was not enough to kill off Blofeld.
Yeah, not enough kerosene to kill off this guy. Sterile and compulsory action. But then we get to Hildebrand, Prince and Rarities. This is the safe house where Bond meets with M. Hildebrand Rarity is of course the James Bond short story from Ian Fleming from the original novels. Okay, they are there and Madeleine says goodbye. Bond doesn't seem to even pay much interest. I wish they would have just left it that way. Like, okay, Madeleine Swan walks out of the picture now. But no, she's going to be bait, to be once again used in the film as a victim to be saved.
Yeah, because that's kind of her entire motive in the film. Either she's being kidnapped or then she just hangs around with Bond.
Yeah, Q tries to hack the system. How exactly does M escape from the car? Because it seems that he's clearly teleporting away from the scene.
Well, he is clearly teleporting from the scene.
Right, the guy has maybe off-screen something like 3 seconds to go somewhere.
Yeah, but then again, somebody who does not teleport off the screen is Moneypenny, who back in Skyfall was given a sniper rifle in one scene, which Moneypenny completely fucked up. But that entire scene, that scene still meant that the entire world went crazy over how the character had finally been fixed, and Moneypenny was now feminist presentation, and there was all this positive buzz around Skyfall and how Moneypenny was treated there, and now all of a sudden in Spectre, the film is going over its heels to make sure that the good publicity would never happen again, because Moneypenny is just quickly telegraphed out of the entire ending of the film. Like, here she sees that Bond and her boss are being hijacked, and her reaction is to run away and not show up, except after the situation has been handled.
Oh.
So, yeah, so could the film please, like Sam Mendes, if you're listening to this, can you please, reach us on the Flicklab Facebook page and tell us why do you hate good press? Like, when did positive buzz become a bad thing?
That's a very good point. Also, I'd like to know the C's motivations for what he's doing, because there's this quote, "I made an alliance to put the power where it should be. And now you want to throw it away for the sake of, quote, democracy, whatever the hell that is. How predictably moronic. But then isn't that what M stands for? Moron. What does then C believe in exactly, and why is he pulling this plan off? We don't even know what is personally at stake here. What's his personal goals? I guess nothing."
I guess he doesn't have any.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in democracy for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if we are to take Blofeld on his word, C is not in Blofeld's pocket. He's not on the payroll, so this is not money and power thing. C is just a visionary, and apparently, being a visionary means that you handle all the power over your own spy network to some kind of a lunatic master criminal who has a global terror operation.
Yep,
Because
reasons.
what exactly? Because the plot told you to do that?
Reasons. But so, Henrik, what does C stand for? What were you thinking C would stand for?
Can't.
Right! That's what it is. I remember an audience waiting for it. Everybody was waiting for it. Everybody was kind of giggling. Okay, now it's coming. But no, it's PG-13, I guess. So, or was this supposed to be some kind of a double entendre? It's PG-13, so it's really can't, but we can't use it, so it's gonna be careless. But then it's like, oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
She just called you a moron, and now you're just gonna come up with careless?
Yeah.
And you have a countdown to surveillance powers, like intriguing point, isn't it? You know, you have 2 minutes. What if they would have activated the system for 2 minutes? Would they then download all the intel to themselves in those 2 minutes? Would it be super bad?
I'm guessing it would have been super bad. Like all the intel is downloaded in 1 nanosecond.
Right. Oh my. MI6 building is in pieces. It's about to be demolished, kind of prematurely, because Blofeld is back. No green seen on the shooting yard here. Yep. Yeah, pretty much everybody else. Yep. Of anybody of consequence. So you have the "You Only Live Twice" makeup for Oberhauser, character development of Oberhauser. So still no rage from this character, even after his face has been destroyed. Nothing changes in the portrayal of the character. He's just kind of like and says, "I've really put you through it, haven't I? That's brothers for you. They always know which buttons to press. Haha. But you're not even brothers, right? Officially, or on any level, really."
No. Like step bros at best.
Yeah? Okay, and there's the lame death of C, because you can't just do anything right. The guy just falls. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of a really lame ass way to finish off your bad guy. And
Yeah.
also kind of a hypocritical moment from M's part, because up until this point M has been voting on democracy and the the freedom of the small peoples and everything that and following the guidelines or rules. But here in the end, M, who no longer works for MI6, I'm guessing, all of a sudden breaks into a government building and assassinates a higher level government official.
Yeah, because Q.
And and on top of that, kind of fucks over every other nation who was part in the Nine Eyes program. Because as I understood, every other country except UK had already transferred their agency databases to correspond with Nine Eyes.
There was a vote for this Nine Eyes, and the legislation didn't pass because South Africa was against it. But then they hastily had another vote for it after the bombing of Cape Town, and then they agreed to do it.
Yeah. So basically, every country except Britain has now made the necessary changes into their data structure, into how their systems work, to transfer those systems into Nine Eyes. They've already done that. Britain is the last country who hasn't yet transferred, and now M just trashes the whole thing and shuts down Nine Eyes.
Yep.
Meaning that all the other countries who have already, taken their spy network or their intelligence network and put it into the trash and transferred into Nine Eyes, all of a sudden are in a situation where they don't actually have a spy system. Like they don't have the information structure anymore. They got rid of the previous one that they had been using, and now all of a sudden Nine Eyes is dead on water. So nice going, M. Good job. And this comes from the dude who made speeches about democracy and how important a vote is.
But he already has some kind of a very weak word of the mouth evidence from Swan and Bond, and I think that's about it. I guess you need only 2 people to incarcerate C, and that's what they're going with here.
I guess, but once again, M should know that that's not how democracy works. Sure. The Nine Eyes was a bad thing, and it would have led into a disaster. That much is true. So, in that, it makes sense that they stopped Nine Eyes. It makes sense that they killed C. But M is no longer the head of 00 program. He no longer works for MI6. He's a civilian. What M technically is doing here could count for treason.
And it's funny how he is once again accepted when he comes to the bridge and he says that Mallory from 00 section, and they're like, first like, should we? Okay, we should.
Yeah, like why the fuck didn't the cops, stop him?
Yeah. And why did Bond not shoot the plane already when he's on top of the building and Blofeld is looking the show from afar? He could have just shot the plane from right there if he's such of a marksmanship as he will prove.
Actually, it would have been more realistic to shoot the helicopter from there.
Yeah.
Than
easier.
Than from the boat, because I would make the case that it's impossible to make that shot. Like the distance, it being nighttime. The fact that the airflow, since you are going after the helicopter with a boat, the airflow is actually hitting back at you, so it's pushing against the bullet, making it, fly a shorter distance. The helicopter has a dark paintwork, which makes it a nightmare to try to hit in extremely small, very specific spot on the helicopter's hull.
But Henrik, it's completing the character arc of James Bond that I was a horrible shooter at the beginning of the film and now I have completely transformed myself. Oh, sorry, it's Skyfall. It's from Skyfall.
It's Skyfall.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
MI6 headquarters. My God, they're getting a lot of beating in these movies. Like in The World Is Not Enough, there's this explosion before the boat chase happens. Now in Skyfall, it was bombed by Silva. And now in Spectre, it's completely demolished after the Silva incident.
Yeah. The MI6 headquarters are the most hated building in the Bond franchise.
Yeah, and I kind of feel weird about actually a real building that I have seen also, that it exists there, and now the movie is making the case that no, it doesn't exist anymore. It's funny.
But then again, kudos for Blofeld for blowing up the building, because that was all around kind of a good guy thing for him to do. I mean, the building was already bombed, so it most likely was marked for demolition. The MI6 had already transferred into the new high-class building.
Mm.
So basically the government would have had to demolish the old one. That would have cost a lot of money. And here Blofeld is essentially doing the whole shebang for free, saving taxpayer money,
Yeah.
I'm guessing, I'm getting the vibe that Blofeld is the real hero of the film.
The new headquarters, at least according to one Londoner, doesn't exist in London. So, funny thing. The lame fight and in the end with this whole helicopter that we were talking about. Yeah, so this could have worked great in Skyfall as we discussed, but here it doesn't even serve any narrative goal that he's shooting the helicopter from afar, except it's just some ham-fisted way to finish the film, and it's really, really lame. That's the way you end the film.
Yeah, it's not even a fight between the man who supposedly has been behind every bad thing that has happened in your life.
See, they're never getting physical with these guys. Ever.
No.
And I was actually expecting that Blofeld would not fail, that he would actually get away with the plane, because that's kind of the Blofeld thing to do. And I think it would have served his grace a little bit better. That's the way he is, he's kind of untouchable. He always gets away. Thomas Newman putting his John Barry references, once again, there's this high pipe sound or whatever it is, it's from Thunderball, very much. Bond also throws the gun to the river, or that's how it seems, because that's a great idea. But this is to communicate to Madeline in a masculine way, that I'm coming to get you, and this is the end of my career.
Yeah, that's how I also read the moment. Like this is supposed to be the moment when Bond walks out of the life, and this is supposed to be the curtain call for Daniel Craig's appearance as James Bond, which of course works very well when you look at what's coming with No Time to Die.
What do you think about this whole Oberhauser calling for Bond to finish it with a smirk on his face? Finish it. Why? Why would it be a good thing for Bond to finish him? Would it give Oberhauser the satisfaction that now he's evil, he's killing like somebody who is not giving him a threat at this moment, killing an unarmed person? I personally don't believe Bond would lose his sleep over shooting the author of all his pain.
No, I mean, this isn't the first time that Bond necessarily has been shooting unarmed persons.
Yeah, and he has been so inconsequential to his past, this Oberhauser, that I guess he just doesn't feel like shooting him today. I don't know. I guess somebody could have called the child services just because this just kind of could prove that Father Oberhauser didn't really bring his real son into anything, and all this time was spent with James Bond doing some hunting and fishing, what have you. Or Bond...
I don't know, maybe it's just, Christoph Waltz going off the script and trying to get off from the franchise.
Oh, that could have been.
That's my take.
Oh, I accept. But no, Blofeld is detained. But I in a way I like it. In a way I like it because this is kind of the end of the violence cycle. And Bond really doesn't give a shit anymore. This is the end of his 00 career. So he doesn't care anymore. Just keep on rotting in some cell.
Yeah. A notion that you can be sure that Norway comes to bite Bond in the ass.
Of course.
In the future.
Yeah.
Would you actually choose to carry on and continue the franchise with Daniel Craig? Like, if Daniel Craig would do another Bond film after Spectre, this decision here at the end of the film would really look really stupid.
No Time to Die is gonna be particularly interesting because they are bringing back two characters that nobody liked, Madeleine Swann and Oberhauser. And notice I'm basically calling him Oberhauser all the way because I don't accept this guy really as a Blofeld. He's just Oberhauser to me. So Bond drives off with Aston Martin DB5 with modifications with Madeleine Swann.
Yeah, into the beautiful sunset which holds all the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo sequels.
And they use the same David Arnold piece of Bond music again. This is like 5th time or what? It's been used to death in these endings and throughout the Craig run. And you're kind of really relieved that this movie finally ends. And you don't really care for your hero to return after the credits start to roll. And you actually see a close-up of the gear shift as one of the last shots. Bond team is starting to kick into gear. By God, man. Weren't you just hoping that the Bond would push the ejector seat button and ejector seat the shit out of Swan and just drive off alone into the end credits? That would have been
It would have been a better ending.
Oh my. That would have been it. But yeah, we get Bond theme and Morocco theme from the film, and special effects, cast and crew from Austria, Matthias Tissi Brandhofer and all that. And I don't know, man, that's Spectre, favorite performance.
Well, you're not gonna believe me when I say this, but it's actually Dave Bautista.
Oh.
I think he gives kind of the most exciting performance here. I hated Craig very much so. I like it's once again, it's hard to say. Is Greg being lazy or is everybody else being lazy and Greg is trying to build a character? But like the dude tastes like he doesn't give a shit. Waltz
Yeah.
to me is just rehashing his previous roles. Lea Seydoux as Madeline Swan looked like she didn't wanna be here. Ralph Fiennes as M appeared to me like he didn't give a fuck, was just quickly cashing a paycheck. Like, none of these roles actually in any way worked for me. I would say, and with Bautista, I got the biggest kind of a difference from him when I compared his performance as Hinks to what he was in WWE during his wrestling days. I actually saw some difference there at least, and I'm willing to welcome that.
Yeah, that's a great choice. There isn't that many things to choose from, but I liked Ray Fiennes in this movie actually myself. I also liked Naomi Harris's Moneypenny. I always liked Ben Whishaw. I did like Monica Bellucci. Really hard to call, but Ben Whishaw gets some quite funny moments. Let's go with Ben Whishaw. Favorite quote?
To me, it would be from the clinic scene. The clinic barman remarks, "Here you are, sir, one proleptic digestive enzyme shake." Which I don't know what that is, but it does sound goddamn awful. And Bone remarks, "Do me a favor, throw that down the toilet. Cut out the middleman." Because that's most definitely the right thing to do with that drink.
I kind of felt that that was quite a crude joke to come out of Bond's mouth, but I accept it's funny. For me, it would be there's a lot of funny quotes somewhere here and there, but "You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond." I'll go with this. We skipped over favorite scene, so what's your favorite scene?
Maybe Mexico opening.
Yeah,
Like it if nothing else, when the scene really opens, it has some nice camera work. There's some nice continuous shots, and during the helicopter fight, there is some nice establishing shots. I do like the shots of the helicopter as it's swinging atop of the crowd, and there are these huge wide shots of the environment. Everything that happens inside the helicopter is shit, but the outside shots are nice.
yeah, they were rehearsing for that for a very very long time, and they then eventually did it in a moving helicopter. So good stuff. Also, I was kind of impressed by some decisions that they made. That they didn't make the helicopter to be CGI. Instead, they made parts of the square, or maybe it was the square all the time when they were flying, CGI square, because it would have been too dangerous, of course, to shoot there if the crowd would have been under them. That's also the reason. But it's cool that the centerpiece of attention, the helicopter, is real. Okay, so for me, yeah, it's when Bond is crossing over the balcony and walking on the edge of the building, looking cool as fudge, and Thomas Newman is hitting this James Bond tune. Favorite kill?
I'm kind of a tied between Bautista being thrown out of the train or between the dude getting his eyes gouged out. Essentially, all the violence in the film is lackluster. There is really not that many good kills, and the action sequences are kind of underwhelming in my opinion. So those are the only two standout moments. At least in the train fight, there's some nice violence. At least Daniel Craig did get injured during that fight when Bautista threw him on the wall, and he hurt himself in that. So fuck it. Because Daniel Craig got injured during the train car fight, I'm giving this one to Bautista.
I'm gonna just go with Mr. White because maybe it was the most impactful kill. It had some good habitat in a way, but random confusing. Well, if you were Hinks, what would you have said instead of shit?
I don't know. I would just stayed quiet.
Yeah, me too. What threw you out? If that isn't clear by now.
The dumb ass plot. the fucking magic scanner, and me not really feeling the action in this film.
Yeah, unfocused script, kind of badly balanced plot. It seems like it's not directed by someone who even understands Bond on any level. I don't know what happened. I didn't really enjoy the background stories of Bond in Skyfall and the Home Alone shit, but this is weird. It's doing so many things wrong that it could have easily done in a different way. It's doing the opposite of what it should be doing.
Yeah, it does precisely that, and it also does a bunch of stuff that it wouldn't need to be doing.
Yeah.
Basically, all the callbacks.
Yeah. What the hell? What are we celebrating now? God damn it. What drew you in?
I don't know. The Day of the Dead scenes were pretty cool.
Yeah, once again.
And when Bond, is on the lake going to the Mr. White's house, there were some good establishing shots there.
Yay.
That's about it, to be honest.
I have in my notes once again that this rooftop walking, the swaggery walk that Craig does there on in the pre-title sequence. So basically the Mexico again, and but it's not all bad. The first half of it can be pretty good. There are some truly funny lines here and there, and then I also feel a little uncomfortable with some of the lines that don't even seem to make sense. So yeah. But what would you change in the film? How would you improve the film in the Scissors of Sacrilege?
I'm kind of hesitant to go with the Sony producers and write a bunch of fucking emails where I whine how the script doesn't work and the third act doesn't work and we have to rewrite it. Basically, I would just can the film.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I have also written. Like, this entire script should be reworked from the ground up. Put this thing back to the shed whence it came. Start over. Don't do revelations from Bond's past because I really couldn't care. I mean, you have to have some character arc, but then there is this. There is no struggle and personal goal in the film for our main character. This is like script writing ABC that is completely lacking here. I'm not finding the answer to this question.
Yeah, it bears to remember that this is the script that is the salvaged, the fixed product. This is the script that Sony representatives looked at and said that, well, now it's good enough.
Yeah, unbelievable. And yeah, they could remove all the callbacks to the previous Bond films. I just want to see finally a new Bond film, not the old Bond films again. And stop the lame and cliche twists and developments that everybody can already smell before it even happens. Create an interesting base for the bad guy. Maybe not like crazy volcanoes, but come on. Desert again? Really? And Hinks, I think Hinks is kind of forced, even though I like his performance, but it's badly executed. They just can't pull off these classic James Bond baddies anymore.
No.
Yeah.
The character is completely pointless.
Yeah. And then this cuckoo stuff with Blofeld. What? Stop doing collapsing building shticks. Just stop. Stop doing it. Stop using CGI in the first 5 minutes. Write more original music, because this is a rehash of Skyfall. And I'm not a huge fan of Thomas Newman's work, but Skyfall had really interesting bits here and there. Choose an interesting leading lady, perhaps. Don't make Bond a Superman. Stop exploding everything. Give some development time to build attraction between your main characters. Stop doing Dark Knight and this dark color correction thing, whatever it is. Take more risks with the franchise, but maybe not so much that your brain falls out. Accept Radiohead songs when you're given some. Fire Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. Don't let Sam Mendes direct any more Bond movies. Clearly I think the guy is burned out. Make action scenes focus on action scenes instead of Moneypenny's sex life. How about that? This movie is a bit confusing, to say the least. I think that's it.
That's not that many fixes to be made into the film.
Back to the shed, please. 3 adjectives to describe Spectre.
Mine would be boring, because this actually is.
Mm-hmm.
It's half-baked in many of its ideas, and it's completely aimless.
Yeah, very good. Misguided, asinine, and rushed. But I didn't look at my watch myself when watching this film.
I didn't either. I'm guessing I'm building up some tolerance against all these films as I'm doing the film podcast.
There are some Bond movies that grow on you, and I'm afraid this is just not doing it. I can't blame my brother for not watching James Bond films after Casino Royale. There have been some missteps on the way. But would you recommend Spectre?
No, I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I do maintain. This isn't necessarily the worst Bond film ever made. The franchise does have some real turkeys even before Spectre, but Spectre might still maybe be the most painful Bond film to look, because at times you still kinda see potential. I do maintain that the Nine Eyes plotline, it did have some good ideas there. I did like the idea of personal freedoms versus security and police state. I always like that theme in films. So there was something that could have worked in completely different film, and to me, I've always liked Daniel Craig's run with the Bond. I'm one of, like, I'm perhaps the only person on earth who still likes Quantum of Solace, enjoys the film. I do agree it's not as good as Casino Royale or Skyfall, but I still, like it. I'm a Quantum of Solace apologist myself, but kind of there was the high point with Daniel Craig. With Daniel Craig in helm of the character, I was actually I was certain that we have finally gotten past the first film is good, and then it's just shit from there onwards. Habit of the franchise, and then Spectre happens, and it's so kind of infamous film that when I went and saw the Star Wars Force Awakens for the first time, and I really hated that film also. I used to say that it's the Spectre of Star Wars films.
You're not the only one with that, yeah.
Yeah, and my friends remarked back that don't be so harsh on the film. Like,
That's basically
that
that film is just doing exactly what was done before. It's kind of full of callbacks.
It is, and none of the new elements that it brings to the table work at all. But like that's the level we are talking about when we are talking about Spectre. And maybe it's not the worst. Like Die Another Day happened also, and Bond has been on fucking moon base and God knows what. But after Spectre, I have been unofficially done with Daniel Craig as James Bond. I've been done with Bond franchise. I know that for this podcast we are supposed to go and check out No Time to Die whenever it gets released. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try to go with an open mind and give the film a fair shot. But believe me when I say, when I'm gonna go check out the film, I'm gonna go and check it out of obligation, because I co-host a film podcast and I have a job to do. I'm not excited about the next Bond film after Spectre, or the news I've heard about the latest one, No Time to Die. It's actually, honest to God, it's from the Flick Labs Facebook page. That's how uninterested I am with Bond franchise ever since I saw Spectre.
I'm kind of with you. I was really done with Bond when I went to theaters, and this is coming, by the way, from a lifelong fan of the franchise. I started watching James Bonds when I was 6 or 7, and it just seems that the producers of the franchise, Barbara and Michael, are not quite aware of what they're doing here, and that's been kind of obvious for a long time to me. And now that you're gonna bring 2 characters into your new film that nobody liked, it's not like you're really listening to the audience feedback here. Unless, of course, you're able to do something that is not really irritating in No Time to Die. But How do you feel about this, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson? How do you think they have managed to carry on the torch of James Bond after License to Kill, let's say? I mean, it's been with variable success levels.
I don't know. I'm not as disappointed with them as you are. Like I said, I do like majority of Daniel Craig's run. I'm a big fan of Casino Royale. I'm a big fan of Skyfall. I do enjoy quite a bit of Quantum of Solace. So I'm not entirely ready to say that everything they've done is trash and they're completely worthless simply because of Spectre. I don't know who fucked up with Spectre. Like who ultimately is to be blamed. Is it the direction? Is it the Barbara? Is it Michael? Is it some asshole in Sony? Like somebody has to be crucified. I just don't know who that person is.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic. They seem to take a lot of risks with the franchise, but at the same time they are kind of unwilling to let go of some old things. And these callbacks, man. Okay, many layers to that. But that was Spectre pretty much, unless you have something for the complete the sentence. You really know you're watching Spectre when
you are the architect of your own pain, which for me would translate last night and 5 bottles of wine.
Yeah. Or alternatively, you really know you're watching Spectre when you're not sure if you're watching a James Bond film or Mickey Mouse and the Cuckoo Diaries. That's about as sensible as this film. That was the James Bond run for now, ladies and gentlemen, because the powers that be have decided that this next film, No Time to Die, is not going to come on schedule. It has been now delayed 3 times and will be released in November according to the latest information. But who knows? Stay tuned to that. Let's see how long this chaos persists and whether we will solve this problem only after we have some kind of a vaccination for this, which could take up to 18 months of vaccine development hell. So good luck with human race. But see you next time with a whole bunch of different movies. That's it. And in the meantime and in the between time, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Come join us for the podcast. And I guess we're ready to kill Bond for now. Thank you, Tom Franklin, so far for help in being our guest in these episodes. Unfortunately, it didn't work this time, but life happens, as stated. Anything to add, or are we about to throw our Oberhauser clothes to the corner?
I guess this is it for us.
Yeah. How's it been? Are you completely done with Bond for now?
I'm most definitely completely done.
Yeah. It's been a long run indeed. It's been running this whole Bond marathon for what, like over 6 months? I think we're done. We were playing with the idea of reviewing even more movies in this between time here that has now been created. But thanks, but no thanks. I think there's a lot of movies that we can discuss outside of the Bond sphere.
I'm 100% with you on that one.
So thank you for joining us and see you next week.
Until then.
Cuckoo. 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 Cuckoo.
Like for example, to take the chorus of the song. How do I live? How do I breathe when you're not here? I'm suffocating. I want to feel love run through my blood. Tell me, is this where I give it all up? For you, I would risk it all. Which essentially is kind of a like a love song thing.